What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday, and we are here with Terra Vision tonight. But first, I felt like I could use a co-host tonight, so I brought in the doctor, Mr. Will Dodson. How we doing?
Oh, the Chanel West Coast to your Rob Durdick.
Perfect.
Should
But
rename it Ridiculousness.
that was a really good intro. I appreciate that. But the man of the hour, let's bring in Mr. Brad Henderson.
Hello,
Hey.
hello.
Welcome, Brad. First thing, obviously, everybody has been hearing that you've been kind of messed up the last couple of days. How we doing?
Oh, how am I doing
Yes.
physically?
Yes.
Not the greatest, but I'm hanging in there. The 13 weeks of Halloween is helping me keep chugling through. Chugling, isn't that what Creedence Clearwater Revival says or something? I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Would you say you've had a headache recently?
I have had I don't get migraines. I don't normally get headaches, but I tell you what, man, this has really kind of knocked me for a loop. But I'm also a man who's a sissy with pain, so maybe it's not as bad as I make it seem.
I would imagine an item under your skin on your face that you are not used to suddenly enlarging would hurt anybody.
Yeah. So I gotta get checked out, but I'm fine. Thanks for asking. I think I'll be fine. I just got a little bit of a hurdle.
Well, you toughed out last night, and now we're here with all kinds of people watching. Tony from the Imprint Films cast is watching all the way from Australia. People excited to see you, and no doubt why. I mean, we got a ton of announcements last night. First off, how do you feel like everything went last night?
I don't know. It's always weird because it's a part of it is that you work so hard for so long and you kind of. I mean, we've been building this up. This was the plan for a long time, was to announce a collection of titles that we were very proud of, but also kind of showed our range in the sense. And yeah, that was kind of the idea behind it, was to kind of launch and really show that Terra Vision's footprint and really show that we're here. But we also did a lot of building up. We had talked a lot of shit about I talked a lot of shit personally because I didn't when I left OCN Vinegar Syndrome. There was a part of me that was happy because I was able to do a lot of things that I wanted to do that I normally maybe couldn't have done on the VS label. And my taste is ranging from, I mean, everything. I mean, the lineup for Terra Vision is going to be an inside look of my, brain and like how it works and what I like. Ryan too, of course, because it's all collaborative. But it really feels like something's mine. It doesn't feel like I'm just kind of a part of something that's a lot bigger piece, smaller part. And like I left like little footprints, through the time that I was at VS. The same thing at Wild Eye. And my point is, when I stepped down, I felt like I had a lot to prove in the sense of, what I needed to do and wanted to do. And luckily, I found a partner that shares the exact same interests and passions that I do. And that's why Ryan and I work so well. And that's also probably why we were so fast to do what we were wanting to do, because we were both motivated in the same capacity, both with a little something to prove in the sense of going off on our own, because, we left the top dog in the company, as a partner label. I split from the label. Those were two big moves for us, and we needed to show that there was a reason behind it. And there you go. So
last night was incredibly fun. I think we had at one point almost 400 people. There was around like 385, something like that, live at the same time watching. And
yeah, I thought I would be. I was just happy if I still told, I think Ryan, I think I said this on the show too, if like we even got to 100, I would have been, super thankful for. It was crazy when we first launched, the amount of people that signed up for the subscription. We were like, oh, maybe we'll get like 100 people, and it was like way past that. It was like, man, like that's crazy. And then like when we first announced the 50 title thing, and that was just kind of an experiment. The reason why it launched so early was because we didn't want to like do it at the same time as like this drop, right? We
Right.
need to like take baby steps because we wanted to move really, really fast, but we also had to kind of pace ourselves. And there's so many things. Is getting titles together, getting a release schedule because it's not like you typically like pick something up. You acquire something and you put it out in a month.
Right.
It's several years sometimes from the very, very beginning. And yeah, we wanted to, like I said, take those small baby steps, but also make a big impact. So that's why we dropped the 50 for 1,000. Because it's just like, okay, we'll eventually get in this direction, but we need to implement this tier stuff now.
Right.
And the people that signed up for that, I was like, what is going on? Like, okay, you trust us. Now it's worse. It's not like you sign up after you know the titles, because those people are gonna know what they're getting. But there were so many people that are just like, yeah, fuck it, and jumped into the fire. And I was like, man, that's like really cool that you trust us, because that's the whole point of the curation and the label, right? We're not releasing stuff that's just free or comes about. I said that on the show too. If we did that, man, one, we would have hundreds of titles in our library, and 80% of them would be not something that we wouldn't like talk about. Like anything that we release is something that we personally love in one way or the other, or it's something that we just enjoyed and we're like, yeah, this would be cool. That's kind of how it was for Malin, you know. The guys at Welcome Villain, they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we like what you've always done in home video. Like, I was like, yeah. It's like, I like his approach to kind of horror and everything. And I wasn't huge on the last shift, but I think Malin kind of made up for everything that lacked in the last shift for me, because
Right.
it was more nightmarish. And that's what I wanted from the last shift. I felt there was a little too much drama. This one has the drama in the right spaces, and it's also very, horror and nightmare fueled. And yeah, they came to us, and I was like, man, that's like crazy. We're like nobody, you know? Um, and it meant a lot to us because we were like, we dig the movie. Absolutely. Thank you for taking a chance. I hope it doesn't fail. This is like a brand new fucking movie, which we've done brand new movie. This is like Malum was like a new movie.
Right.
And we very much, at Terra Vision want to get, I mean, we're already kind of doing that with like stuff for Welcome to Hell and Cube. And we have some other contemporary films that are just now coming out, films that we've put on our lineup. And, it's important to me because I come from a festival background.
Exactly.
I curated film festivals. I was on committees. I did programming. That was my thing. So it's all curation. You want to show somebody, the thing. I mean, I do this every quarter. If you follow me online, I do a thing called the marathon, and I have a ton of friends that come, and it's between 7 to 9 films that I programmed in order, and it's just like, that's what I love. I like to live vicariously. I've said this on every show I've been through. You can't watch a movie for the first time again. And it sucks that you're not able to do that, But if you have somebody that hasn't seen the movie, you can kind of live through them. That's the best part about watching movies like with your kids and stuff. Because it's like when you watched the first time, watching all the movies that I loved growing up. I'll try not to cry because it's about my daughter. But it was fun watching movies with her. I love that shit. Can't talk about it. I'm gonna cry. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad. I'm experiencing a lot of that right now. I mean, I've got an 8-year-old and about to be 7-year-old. We just watched Jaws for the first time on the 4th of July together, and seeing my 8-year-old attach the TV for that, knowing that he would appreciate what I appreciated, it's amazing.
Yeah, and that's one of the only ways, especially when there's innocence involved, not so much like a buddy and you're watching a movie with a couple beers, but watching a movie with an innocent person like that. That's how I experienced it, because it was something I probably wasn't allowed to watch, or maybe should have watched. So yeah, but yeah, it's a wild ride. So, anyways, sorry I ramble. The whole point of doing the curation is that's what I love to do. So every film that's handpicked from Terra Vision is something that we truly believe in, and we could have a podcast on each movie, like
Right.
nothing just picked out of a hat.
Well, and that's thankfully what something like tonight is about. And you've made yourself be very transparent to most people. And there's only really a handful of labels that have done that on the sort of level that you and Ryan have like really been able to strive to do throughout all of this. Radiance from last year is a big deal. That Fran, through the building process, he was always open about the struggles he was having, and you and Ryan are completely open. I mean, the picture you shared a couple months ago of you and Ryan in the van with the 512 packages stuffed behind you.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how much you guys actually work hands-on on a lot of this.
Yeah. It was funny because I was in Savannah during that time. Obviously I go to Savannah a lot, to hang out with Ryan, because he's not just, a coworker, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah, so we went up there, and there was a chance to pack some stuff, and I was like, yeah, I love that. That's what I did at VS for a long time. And it was funny. I remember being asked one time, it's like, you do special features and acquisitions. What are you doing in the warehouse? And I'm like, why am I not? I'm just here.
Right.
It's nothing more gratifying than putting a movie that you recommended, acquired, produced, the special features, help get the disc out, and putting it in a box for somebody that bought because they liked what you did, or they want to experience something that you worked on. I think that's incredibly gratifying. I love to know what moves and what doesn't, and it's not even from a money perspective. It's like, what do people need to be turned on to more? Why didn't they take a chance on that?
Right.
And that's the whole thing, is that, your favorite movie hasn't been seen yet by yourself. That's the way I always look at it. And it is about kind of broadening I mean, you can use the thing, we don't have that much time to watch a movie. I only get to watch one movie a week. But do you just want to watch the same thing over and over? Like, experiencing something new and discovering something by yourself, without like a ton of research, is one of the most gratifying experiences for me. I'm not saying for everybody, but I mean, I try to watch a new movie, like one new movie a day,
Jeez.
and I pick always like super weird shit. I have no idea what it is. I don't watch trailers. I don't read, there's like random like things that you could do like on Letterboxd, and like you can just hit random and it'll pick like a random movie, and I do that, and I research it and try to find it, and then get it and watch it, and that's without like reading or doing any research. It's just like, I just want to be exposed. That's why I love going to film festivals.
Yeah.
And that's what Janet Pearson, she retired, but Janet Pearson is a wonderful programmer. She's a wonderful person. And she's just so open to anything. You could show Janet anything, for the most ridiculous, like offensive movie ever, and you can show her something that's shot on video, or you could show her like a big grand, blockbuster, and she'll just always be there to enjoy it. But she always said something that's resonated with me and stuck with me, is that she said, go in, and the movie that you don't watch a trailer, you don't read about, that's going to be your favorite movie of the festival. And shit, man, she's always right. I'd always go to film festivals and be like, yeah, I want to see this, because you just know things, directors, actors, talk about online, other festivals, press, trailers, whatever it may be. But sometimes you just go into a movie blind, because I don't have anything to do and I don't know anything about this movie, and all my friends are in other things. I'm going to sit down and watch this. And yeah, that's it's amazing to watch something like that. So
You know, it's funny. The first question I was going to ask you was kind of about the philosophy of Terra Vision, and you've just given about a 12-minute answer to it, which was just,
Yeah, sorry,
which
I
was-
tend to do that. Yeah.
no, it was perfect because I like that phrase that you used, leaving footsteps in the snow, and this idea of curating based on your individual personalities and tastes and passions. And it reminds me a lot of, like indie music labels in the 80s and 90s and college radio, which is where I got kind of my start in getting obsessed with music and film. And I think there's a lot of that spirit in some of the better boutique labels today, that newness of trying something new, discovering something new in the stacks that you've never heard of,
Yeah.
that you've never read about. And when I saw the announcements last night, having seen the first few months of Terra Vision, and as the titles came trickling out, there was kind of one idea of what Terra Vision might be, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, it's going to be way more eclectic and risky and unpredictable than I might have thought 5 or 6 months ago. So this is I'm very grateful to be part of this conversation, because this is such a huge announcement with so many titles that we can maybe go through and pick out a couple from. But what I am most impressed by is the range and the way you treat every title with more or less the same amount of respect and excitement, right? Like, okay, we got Nail Gun Massacre over here. We've got Papatopoulos over there, which we are definitely going to talk more about before this is over. And some guy who kills people over here, and it's just who can predict which way you're going next? It's really exciting. So now I'm rambling, and I'll
Yeah, I
them up.
ramble. I'm the rambler here. There can only be
Right.
one rambler.
My big thing is last night, it felt like this major we are in the room moment, and I really hope that sort of gave this rippling effect across the hobby at the moment, because there's this feeling of Terra Vision has been releasing shot on video stuff, and first off, people didn't even realize that was already wrong just a couple months after launching the partnership with OCN.
Yeah, then the shot of video stuff didn't come until way later, which is the funny part, yeah.
And somehow that has been stuck with Terra Vision, and now the big thing is going to be Terra Vision had this branding for literally the last decade, and now it's not just horror centric. There's going to be a lot of other stuff coming in, and you can feel that. Like last night was an electric moment. So I really hope people are able to come to a community like that and really just feel that special moment, because it's not something that happens ever. I mean, I personally can't think of any other label that's come on a live stream and announced, like, I think there was almost 30 releases if you count cassettes and VHS and all that stuff from last night. That was a wild stream last night.
Yeah, and I'm glad that's how it came across, because that was the intention. Was it was to try to show everything up. It was trying to get on the map. It was trying to be with the big guys. That's honestly what it is. We're not trying to flex or like show our shit, flash our shit like something, but the point is that we wanted to make a statement that we are here, and it was just we were pumped that because it was like one of those things that like we would acquire stuff and it's like, oh shit, let's move that to that announcement. Let's move that announcement. And a lot of things are contractual reasons. Other things are there's a variety of reasons. I mean, the same thing is like Welcome to Hell and Cube, like those two movies. Welcome to Hell was one of my favorite movies from last year. That made my like top 20. Cube was something that I enjoyed because I love the idea of Cube. I love the franchise, and yeah, it's a very like paint by numbers kind of remake, but it's also hyper stylized in a Japanese way, but it also does a couple different twists that you don't really expect, and it's a little bit of a surprise. I just think it's, really well made. But the point of those two that quick, and we didn't want to release a bunch of contemporary films out of the gate, because we know that's not exactly what a boutique label is like doing. We will be doing contemporary titles, but we're going to be doing everything. But we put out probably a little too many contemporary titles right out of the gate. But that was, with that stuff, that's just our partnership with Screenbox, and that wasn't a contractual thing. We just wanted to show Screenbox we were able to do something cool in a very short amount of time. Welcome to Hell, I think we picked up in January and we had it out in March or April. And that's not even dumping the disc. There's there's a short film, there's a music video, there's I believe a whole piece with 6 interview subjects and a commentary with me and Jimena. It's a pretty stacked disc for a brand new movie. I mean, Didn't Evil Dead Rise come out and there's not even a commentary on the disc?
Correct. In the States, at least.
Yeah. And that was just to show. Now, Cube wasn't something out of laziness. It was just that no one could get a hold of anybody. And the ones that we did wanted thousands of dollars for interviews, which is ridiculous. And we still didn't do a bare bones release. We went to Natalie, who had nothing to do really with the project, and just say, hey, you want to talk about Cube and its legacy? And he was like, yeah, sure. And that way we were able to put that on the disc. We maybe could have done something a little bit different or added something, but we felt that was kind of enough for that release, and Welcome to Hell got a good treatment. And so those movies just aren't dumped because we acquired them from Screenbox. We actually, took our time. And that's honestly one of the other things that we're doing behind the scenes. We have these other Screenbox titles, just like When the Screaming Starts, that has, quite a few interviews on it, and everything like that. And we have some other ones that we've acquired that we're still working on extras. I mean, we could put them out months ago. But, that's what a streaming company does. Not bad, because it's obviously what they're supposed to do. Right. But we just don't do things, and we wanted to prove ourselves that we're a bunch of kids and with a punk rock approach, but we can actually put out a product. And that's why it was really cool the Mountain Dudes came to us. Well, Welcome Villain. They saw, I guess, that, and I think I have a pretty good reputation just because I've been in and out of the industry for over 10 years. So I don't think anything people say is bad about me, other than I run my mouth maybe too much. But go fuck yourself. That's what I do. I try not to be a dick, but I don't know.
Hell yeah!
Everybody
listen. On that note, actually, I think it's probably a good time to maybe clear up some myths. And you and I texted about this earlier today.
Ooh,
First one.
Myths.
Let's discuss this Linnea Quigley and AI upscaling.
Oh, yeah, I saw something from Roy Dam on Facebook, and I don't really agree with anything that Roy does, and I don't really approve. I understand movies need to be available, but I also don't think you should make a bunch of money off of them. And some that's happening with some of that stuff is that you're just pulling from other sources. And it's something said about they're going to use AI upscaling or something. I can't remember. I saw it was like we're interested to see what they do because they have to use an AI upscale, something like that. And I tried to comment, but I'm banned from the group apparently. And so it's just like, no, we're not going to do. We don't do AI upscaling. Like the only thing that we did that on was Linnea Quigley, and I mean, not that everybody listened to the stream, but on the stream, it was an option in order to make the movie look better because the elements were so bad. I mean, the thing that people put AI upscaling on things, it's like kind of a weird approach to do things. Like, I mean, people maybe do that for like YouTube videos and they pirate and whatnot to make it look HD. But yeah, it was just like we use AI upscaling or something. And I was just like, no, we don't. I mean, on one release, sure, but like we have you know, as many SOVs that we do, but we also have had a lot of you know, transfers we've done, like Santa Claus, and we have American Nightmare. We had, Shrigala. Um, we've had, a few. I mean, no one's seen American Nightmare yet on that transfer, but we have transferred film. And we've also done some digital stuff. And yeah, I mean, anytime that we approach anything with our films, we want the most like authentic look to the film, and it's in its most natural state with looking HD. Whether it's a tape transfer, and yeah, these things are run through systems and software, but it's nothing that we are going to like use DNR or enhance or go in there and fiddle with things. It's sometimes the warts and all is what looks best before you try to fix it, because even if there's huge scratches and burns and whatnot, or maybe a smidge of something, who knows.
Right.
That's part of the life of the film. That's the traveling part of it. That's why I like to watch 35 millimeter prints in a theater if I can, because the film actually has age. I've had a few 35 millimeter prints scanned, and we've shown them here at parties and whatnot. And when you watch a scan of a print or watch a print in general, especially like we watch T2, that T2 print is beat to shit. But it was also like probably like 100,000 people saw that actual print during that time. Like,
by the way, I mean, how perfect was that?
I didn't even see that. Yeah. But yeah, it's watching something like that, and yeah, I mean, restorations are great. I mean, that's one of the points, because you want to get something, because when that movie first played in theaters, that print was pristine. It was HD to your eyes. That's what you want to see. If we do have opportunities to scan prints and put them on a discs, like we will do that. And that's a request that I do see, but sometimes that's super costly, because I mean, one, you have to figure out who has the print, and then you got to ship it, and that's like 4 or 5 reels, and that could weigh a lot, and then you got to pay for the shipping. You got the thing about worry about losing it. You got to scan it, and scanning costs a lot, and then you got to also clean the film, inspect it, run it through the scanner, unless you own your own scanner, which that's your own responsibility. But we don't at Terra Vision. We use Gotham Photochemical.
Well, this is perfect timing to answer this. Somebody just asked, Brad, are you doing transfers and cleanup out of house, or does Terra Vision have that capability?
Yeah, we do. We oversee everything, but yeah, Gotham Photochemical has done our scanning on some of our stuff. Like Santa Claus was done by Razzo over at camp. He does all of that. He has his own scanner. He does his own restorations. So he did that himself. Jack Perez oversaw everything with some guy who kills people. It's not shot on film, but he still supervised that that HD piece, because that's still, all that stuff has to be converted. And it's just like the same thing with like video violence and everything. All those are transferred for the master tapes over, at Camp Motion Pictures. So it just depends. There has to be like the Shrigala, and we recently announced Escape from Hellhole, and Devil's Sword. All that stuff is done over at in the Jakarta Institute over at in Indonesia. They do all their scans and restorations as part of their government funding and whatnot. So this is a long drawn out answer about the AI upscaling, but we don't want to alter anything like that. We don't want to give a fake look to something, and just assuming that we do that, it's the thing is it's still that people don't realize how things work online sometimes, is that when someone says something that's not true, other people see it, and then they post the screen cap of it, and then they tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends. It's always that Wayne's World piece that I always laugh about, But that's what happens. And then before you know it, you're working at a label and it's like, we're doing what now?
Right.
Like, where did this come from? I saw it quite a few times at Vinegar Syndrome, is that one person says something and then it just spreads. And it's like, that's not true. So even saying something that you may not know about, or you're taking a guess, or I don't know, it was a guess, people still take what you say literally. I'll never forget. I talked to Jesse about this at Diabolic. I took a screenshot of a 35 millimeter print scan of City of the Living Dead I have, and I posted it on Twitter. And then someone said online, and people started commenting that I did the scan for Culture Clubs. And I was looking, and Jesse didn't catch it. I was online. I was like, I'm doing what? Like, what the fuck? And just because I took a picture of me watching something, 3 or 4 people, and I caught it quick, but 3 or 4 people were like, oh, that's awesome. I can't believe Brad did the scan. And it's like, I don't own a scanner. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Jesse's fine. He knows exactly what he's doing. And it was just like little things like that. So that's another reason why we're very vocal. And, we're not going to beat around the bush and say, shut up. Don't say that. That's wrong. Blah, 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 whatever. Is to nip it, because I've seen so many things just get out of hand. I've done it a few times today. It's like people will just start rambling, and it's like, you don't even know what's happening.
Yeah.
We haven't even announced it. You don't even have the disc in your hand, and you're already complaining. God forbid, do not buy it, because you have these preconceived notions already that it's bad, and then you're going to shit on it, and then your 2 friends are going to see it. It's like, what the fuck? But yeah, but we want to be upfront because we want to be honest. That's part of our transparency, is that we're trying to tell people what we're doing. We're trying to be honest up front. If we don't know what we're doing, we will say it. If we don't know yet, we probably won't say anything. If we suspect something, we'll probably tell you we suspect something. It's the same thing at Gator Bait. When we have the 22 reels coming in, we really don't know what's on them yet. We have to fucking scan them. And yeah, once we get them scanned, it'll be quick to figure out, because we could conform them. We'll figure out the differences, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go through, restoration, whatnot. We put on a disc. It's simple. It's the extras that take so goddamn long. But yeah, we just don't know yet. But when we do, by God, we're going to tell you, because one, we don't want people to think that because already people are going to be pissed. I could already tell you. I'll say this. What's today? August 2nd?
First.
Oh, that's right. Terra Vision Tuesday. August 1st at 9:35 p.m. 2023. So many people are going to complain about Rocktober Blood because no one is telling people on these posts, when you go for news, that we're doing it from the tape transfers. In people's minds already, we're doing 4K UHD.
Right.
And it's going to be and then this is why we're afraid to announce things, because we announce them so far in advance, which is still like 3 months or whatever. Word just goes like this, and it's like, please just stop. You hurt companies, really, because then you have all these expectations, and then everything falls back. That's why we're trying to be like so fucking clear right out of the gate.
Right.
Is we're letting you know we don't know. The City Light stuff will be tape transfers. If you don't want a tape transfer, that looks really good, by the way. Just don't fucking buy it. Because don't complain, because we're being honest. And it's things that they're not. It's not that it's cheaper. Everything costs the same amount. Like our tape transfers, getting those tapes and we're not putting up like a VCR to like a fucking computer and hitting play. We're professionally doing these in huge ass fucking expensive tape decks with new tech that is able to do AI upscale. I'm just kidding. It's a sort of upscale. But it puts it into perspective, because I mean, when you watch these movies, you're typically watching them on a tube television. It probably looked fucking great.
Right.
Putting that on a fucking LCD screen is not going to look good, and that's what we have to do. So we want to be upfront with all that stuff. So please listen to you, because you're always correct when you give news. So I always like that. We talk about that in the industry about you, is that there's a lot of people that give false news, or they just want to be able to get a title out there, but they don't give like the impact of what is going on.
Right.
It's just like, oh, somebody's doing this. Well, any more news? Because now my emotions are just turning. Now I'm just dreaming of things that should happen.
Right.
But
And suddenly
yeah,
Rocktober Blood is a 4K release. Yeah.
yeah, 4K HD. Yeah, there you go. But you know, again, we try to say like, hey, we're into like, it's not about being lazy, it's not about being cheap, because we've already showed that we don't do that. If it was cheap, we would have grabbed 8 reels of Gator Bait 1 and 2 instead of 22 reels, because we literally have to grab those, we have to ship them, we have to scan them all. Like, just scanning stuff we're not going to use is going to cost us like $10,000 just to have, and we're not going to be able to do anything with it.
And then the time spent watching it to even decipher what it is.
Yeah, and then we got to, we got to sit there and watch it, and that costs time. So yeah, no, everything we do is it's all calculated. It's all, you know, it's all well thought out. We want the best possible thing. We're not in this for the money. We're in here for presentations and the films that we love, getting the best possible presentation that we're able to get out of it. Because I think a lot of people sometimes think that this is run by a machine, but that's why we're trying to be out there in our faces and talking about things. Because the thing is I've been buying all the way back for, you know, CDs to, you know, beta tapes to VHS to laser discs. Like, my mom was a huge physical media nut, so we had all that stuff. I mean, we had hundreds of CDs at one time, I think. You know, Laserdisc popped up. You know, I've been buying Blu-rays. You know, every time you figure out there's a 10-year-old Blu-ray that's out of print, you're like, oh shit, I probably have it, because I was buying all that shit when it was coming out because I loved it. You know, I supported the shit out of DVD. I supported the hell out of Blu-ray. I'm doing the same thing out of UHD, and it's ridiculous. I'm a huge fan and an advocate for, you know, high quality stuff, and that's something that's always been part of me. That's not something I learned. I learned a lot at DS about, you know, quality and stuff. That's something that they have always strived to do, and I'm very, very good at it. And that's something that I personally, like, even notes and things that I learned there, I carried over to what I wanted to do at Terra Vision. But again, I didn't even do any of that because Ryan already knew. Like, Ryan's the packaging king. He's been doing it for records for, you know, over 20 years. Yeah, it's everything that we do is 100% cared for, inspected, looked at. I mean, people are going to make mistakes. Mistakes will happen. We're not perfect,
Right.
you know, but we're not going to let something slide without actually doing a lot of work beforehand. So.
One question that I had somebody ask me earlier today that I would love to hear you explain, because you're probably the best one for this, is similar to this. Joe Jack in the comments says, if you're using tape masters, does that put its quality closer to an SOV film? And to give a little more detail, the person that asked me earlier basically is saying, what does it mean when you're saying that you have a tape master for these City Lights films? Because you know, is it going to be closer to like the Laserdisc quality of back then, or is it going to be something that is worth being on Blu-ray? And I already know the answer, so I just want to hear your masterful words say it.
Well, the first answer is that it just depends on like the type of tape it was put on, that the material matters, and then how it was stored. Also, the production of the film, the brand of the film, you know, the stock that they actually used matters, because there was bad film stock made around that time, cheap, whatever.
Yeah.
But when we say tape masters, what that entails is that it is the master that was created in order to carry over. So, and carry over to home video is what I mean by that. So, you know, a lot of films, you know, they're shot on film, the negative's cut, it is stored, it has the original camera negative, the inner positive, the inner negative. The OCN is usually, typically, hopefully stored away for safekeeping. The IP and the IN are used to make duplicates and, you know, one off for other prints that are made to, you know, give to, at the time, theaters. And then sometimes IP was maybe shipped overseas to do home video, whatnot. Um, and that's your best source. So sometimes companies like the City Lights production people, they cut out the OCN and the IP and the IN because none of those were created. A print was never created for that. They literally they conformed the film basically onto tape, and then they edited it on a master tape. And these tapes aren't like just VHS tapes. They're like big, like fucking huge ass beta tapes. They're sometimes really heavy. Or they actually have reels that look like film, but it's tape. I think we took pictures of the one for Linnea Quickly's for workout online at the time because that was just reels. So like with the City Light stuff, we have those master tapes that were used in order to create the VHS masters. And typically these things were only ran through maybe one time, twice probably because Troma acquired the City Lights films during this huge, like those films have jumped around so many times to different owners, but luckily no one really did anything with them aside from Troma made some DVDs. Now, I don't know if Troma used those master tapes. Being it's Troma, I would say they probably just used a VHS tape on a DVD. Nothing against Floyd or Michael, but they're cheap dudes. They know the business. Michael, great.
I can confirm that because I have most of those.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had, you know, like Fresh Kill and stuff like that on DVD too, and it was just cheap looking. It was not very good. So with the tape master, we have like our first one we did was Mayhem because I was super excited to see it and what it looked like. And you know, obviously I can tell that it's tape, but I was just sitting there one time like, man, holy shit! Like for a split second, I thought this could have been film for one split second, and then my eyes adjusted. And I'm like, oh no, it's tape. You know, again, like. If I didn't really know anything about quality and my eyes, I mean, I don't even have great trained eyes for this stuff. I'm still learning a lot. And that's the other thing at Terra Vision is that we're constantly learning. And I learned a ton at VS, and I was always amazed by like Curtis and Brandon. They would be like, hey, check out this, this restoration we got in from so-and-so. Because they did the scan, or not necessarily the restoration, but the scan. And they'd be like, hey, we're inspecting the scan. And I'd look and be like, man, it looks fucking great. And they were like, dude, this is fucked up. And I'm like, what? And they're like, look at this. And I'm like that gif of that old black lady that does this, you know, people put on the like Twitter and stuff. Always cracks me up. I love that thing. That was me. I'm just like, I don't fucking see it. So I'm still learning. You got to train your eyes for this stuff. But when you know, Copperhead is what I'm getting at. Is that when I first saw Copperhead, I was like, this is crazy. This looks so fucking clear. Like, how is this? Yeah, it didn't even look like shot on video for Christ's sake. But that's because they shot with super expensive cameras, super expensive tape, and they had a DP, a known DP, a good DP. It wasn't a fucking kid holding a video camera. So yeah, it just all depends. But tape masters are typically like a really, really great source. All the steps down from the film, tape masters the next thing that you can do. So yeah, it is worse than a print because a print you can actually do HD picture as long as it's not like beat to shit. But even then, you can scan it in HD, and it still looks, you know, presentable. But tape masters can look good if done right. And I have worked with tape for a very long time. I did a lot of that at Wild Eye when I was there. So this first that first batch of kind of Visual Vengeance titles that you saw, that stuff that I worked on back in the day. So I had a little bit of experience from that and learned some stuff from Rob. And so I applied that, with everything with Terra Vision. And Ryan has a great team in Savannah that does these. We have Gotham that does a few, and they're great. It just depends on what needs to be done, and we're able to do it. Because I think Copperhead was done by, I want to say, Ryan's people, and it looked insane. Looks so good.
So yeah, one of the things I tell people when we hear tape master for something like this is quell your expectations, but it'll still probably look better than it's ever looked on home video.
Oh yeah, it'll look 10 times better. Like it'll look way better than DVD. And there's some tricks and some tech we can apply that's not DNR or alters the picture, but can bring out some clarity, and that's what we do. Yeah, and honestly, I don't think anybody's complained that has seen it. We just had complaints of how we presented it, and it's like they haven't watched it yet. I've seen a couple things like that. I've even seen another distributor say that we're doing it wrong, and it's like, have you seen them? Because I honestly haven't seen any complaints of people watching it. I think it looks incredible.
Right.
I think we're doing the right thing. It might be your TV. Like I don't know.
Those tape masters, are they 480p still, or are they any higher than that in any way?
Yeah, I believe 480p is the highest, but I mean we're able to do the 1080p picture, 1080i like de-interlaced on something or what needs to be done. But yeah, I know we it's going to be 1080p at the end of the day, but I mean visually, it was only shot in it's shot in HD on film, but it's only when you get the every time you do another generation of tape, it degrades it, so you got to look at
of course.
That.
Well, before we start going into the individual titles, somebody's saying enough of the tech talk. 9-film box set. Do you happen to know if we got to 100 subs in the last 24 hours?
I don't know. You're gonna make me.
I know that I have seen many people personally say that they subbed in the last 24 hours.
Here's the thing: is we already have a good amount of subs. So it's. I think the people that sub now are going to be new customers.
Yeah.
Some, of course, maybe on the fence. I know that the subs did increase a lot during the live stream. And I want to say a lot. A lot to small companies, 50.
Right.
So yeah, we saw a good amount, but I'm going to text Ryan and we can keep talking and maybe it happened.
Sweet. Well, let's get into our first title. We kind of mentioned it earlier. Let's bring up Malum and discuss boutique 4Ks. How there might be
expensive. What? Go ahead. What?
The fake 4K that you and I were talking about last week in the Discord. This is something that some other companies have done and have leaned on, and I just love to hear your thoughts and why Terra Vision is not going to be labeled as the same thing.
UHD is something that I love, but it's something that I had to learn as well.
Right.
And in working at VS, that was kind of a launch, that I first saw, like how everything went. I feel like a light just went out, but I'm already in the dark. Sorry, that with my eyes and my headache, it actually.
I get it. Yeah.
I'm sitting in the dark. And did I just text you that?
You did.
I got to change the first name. Hey, at least I'm being honest.
Yeah.
See the transparency. I accidentally texted you something. I could have said, "Man, this fucking show." But yeah, so UHD was something that I got to really see from like the ground up because it was unique at the time when I was at VS and they were doing Tammy the T-Rex, because when it was first announced, it was just a Blu-ray. And then the chance to do UHD, and it was also really funny to do it on that title, I thought.
Yeah.
That was all VS making that decision. I would just champion acquiring the movie because I was very, very into it. And I knew what we had, and I just was hoping that everybody would agree with me. And yeah, it had the opportunity to do UHD, and I was like, oh shit, that's going to be like really fucking cool to do it with something like that. And there was a chance, or yeah, there was a moment where it screened at Fantastic Fest, and then people could do the pre-order, and then the UHD was announced like months later or whatever, and it was a chance for people to upgrade, and they got like an email, and I forget what percentage it was, but it was really high in 2019.
Yeah.
It was a high percentage. I was like, holy shit, UHD is like that big already. Like I remember fighting, like talking about Blu-ray for it felt like 10 years before people actually caught on.
Yeah.
So yeah, watching each title and then also like figuring out, what's the best presentation? Can it actually, benefit from it to also, is it worth it or is it possible? So the thing is with the with UHD is that whether it's a scan or not, not so much. I'm sorry, if it's digital, it's obviously a little bit easier, but that's a different story. But with film, everything has to line up perfectly in order to do UHD. You have to be able. I mean, and that goes to the senses that the elements can be beat up a little bit, but if it's possible to pull that image, then and also work on it. I mean, something can be scanned in 4K, but then also having UHD, HDR applied is something completely different. But yeah, with Malum, it was actually this one was a lot easier because the filmmakers were already working.
Nice.
And I was just like, hey, like this is great, it's UHD, but we've done the HDR on it? And they were like, yeah, we've been working with Anthony on it, and it's completed. I was like, man, that's wonderful. Because the thing is, we've done a couple titles already, like Cube and Welcome to Hell, that were only mastered in 2K, and
Right.
they never actually had the chance, and they never thought about it when they were making the movie, and like not filming, but when they're like getting the film ready to go and put out there and start doing film festivals, they never thought about mastering in that. So like Cube and Welcome to Hell wasn't possible because they were like, oh yeah, we can't go back. Like when the streaming starts, originally I had a 2K master of that, and I was working with the director on extras, Connor, and everything. And we talked about doing the 5.1 on the film, and that became a thing. And I said to him, I said, do you have like a 4K version of this? And he said, yeah, the house does. And I said, okay, well that will be better than the 2K. And then I said, hey, are these like more raw files? Like, are we able to actually go back? And they're like, oh yeah, we still have this like on a drive, like we can actually go back. And so overseas in the UK, Connor went to the lab that he originally used like 2 years ago, to get the film all straight. They went back and did an HD color pass on it, and he supervised it. They had the tools, they had the knowledge, they had the license and all of that, and they went ahead and they did it themselves. And he got to supervise the whole thing, and I was like, that's fucking rad as shit. Because HDR, it's like a dial, right? You can turn down those colors, you can turn them up. And depending on your artistic approach and having a director with you, maybe it is supposed to be brighter. Maybe that was his intention. You don't want to, I'm not into altering a picture, like changing something, but if it has to be darker You know, like if I ever worked with the fucking Alien versus Predator directors and I had a chance to do that, I'd say, can we turn on some fucking lights? It's fucking black. Like I can't see anything. And I know that was their intention to actually
Right.
see movies or see the aliens and see the battles and see the predators, but you don't get to see that. You're looking at a fucking black screen. Um, so like if we have an opportunity to help the director in his intentions, because sometimes you got to think that these films were taken by filmmakers and then distributors did what they want. So you may be seeing like what you know to be it, but maybe that's not the director's intention.
Right.
You know, this is why directors abandon movies. I mean, that whole thing with Don Coscarelli and Beastmaster, I had no idea Don didn't like the movie. You know, he's like, no. I was like, what do you mean it's Beastmaster? Like, this is like a really popular movie other than Phantasm. I'm like, what the fuck? And it was like, you don't like why? And then you figure out like the movie was taken from him. It was cut differently, you know? And so sometimes, you know, we have a movie coming out. I can't announce it yet because there's something really, really special we're doing with it. But it comes out in October. And I contacted the director and I asked him, I said, hey, you know, we're interested in this movie. I love it. He was like, I don't really know. I'm not a fan of the movie. And I was like, okay, we are. How can like what can we do? Like, do I need to make you like it? I don't understand. Um, and so we talked further about it, and you know, it took a couple calls back and forth, you know, getting to know people because you want to build. I always want to build trust with whoever I'm licensed the movie with. So sometimes licensing can take me a while because we end up falling in love on the phone. But yeah, no, I spoke to him and I said, you know, I'm a big fan of the film. I was like, I really wanted to come back out. Like it's super underseen. No one knows this fucking movie. And we started talking. I was like, hey man, the score is like really, really good. He's like, I love the score. It's like that's something I always loved about the movie. And I said, yeah. And I was like, it really works in these scenes. He's like, oh yeah, that scene is one of my favorite. And then you kind of like lean into it, and it's just like, it's just like Brad I probably will. So we were talking about that. I said, I love the way this looks. And then he finally said, he was like, you know, the movie was never presented the way I wanted it to be. And I said, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Because it's only been on VHS." It's Clue. Clue. So he said, you know, they basically, you know, we shot in scope, but they cropped the picture. He's like 25% of the picture's missing. And I said, "Oh shit!" I was like, "That's fucking terrible." And then I'm thinking back, and I'm like, "Oh my god, he's fucking right." Like, why the film does look like that, you know?
Right.
And he said, I just don't want it to look like that. And I was like, we're not. We're going to do what you want. Like, how do you want the movie to look? And he got really into it. And we're still working on some stuff, but he's turned around. Like, he's super excited.
Nice.
I told him about the thing that we're going to do. And he was like, holy shit. He's like, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah. I was like, this film deserves it. It's going to blow everybody away because everybody's going to be like, what the fuck is this movie? And then people are going to be like, oh, it's that fucking movie. And then I think people will dig it. So, but yeah, that's kind of like how we went about on certain films as far as like I said again, presentation and what we want to do and how we want to listen to the filmmakers and not do our own thing.
Right.
And that's the whole filmmaker friendly portion of Terra Vision. So that's why it's important for new filmmakers to be able to come to us and trust us and also be like, oh, these guys, like they're small, but they're honest, but we're also going to, you know, have people that care about the film because what always happens, and I mentioned this to, I play around, you know, joke around with filmmakers sometimes. I'm like, hey, you own this, you own your movie back yet? And they're like, no, I fucking licensed it for like 20 years. And I'm like, oh, cool. maybe I'll go to the distributor and ask, and I'll have a chance to go to the distributor, and they'll say, what movie? Yeah, I think we have that. They didn't care. All they did was they nabbed the movie for maybe a good amount of money, and then they just put it on VOD, and yeah, or they sat on. They're just like, oh, it's out. No one saw your fucking movie. You maybe made 20 grand, but how are you going to make your next film? Because no one saw your last one. It has like 10 ratings on IMDb. And so that's the other part, is that we champion each thing we do. Nothing's getting dumped on the label. We're always going to promote it, and we're going to get people to see it. And that's the most important part, is I would rather make a little bit of money and 10,000 people see my movie rather than make $1 million and no one see my movie.
Yep.
But that's my personal thing. So I'm sorry, Will, I'm talking way too much.
No, I was just thinking I'd probably take the $1 million from a first movie.
And sure that you could make some other small ones. Yeah.
No, it's funny.
Not a bad idea. Maybe $1 million was $1 million is pretty high. That's like Magnolia Magnet dollars. We're talking like Gratis Ventures was probably like 20 grand or something like that.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say the name of a movie as a joke, but then I worried that I might accidentally guess it, because that's happened to me a couple times recently. So I actually held back. It's good that you kept going.
But yeah, I'm sorry for rambling too much. I get off on little tangents, and it's just all dumb passion driven. Plus, like I said, I'm on drugs, so it's even worse.
Well, no, this is really good, because and this is something that I've not to bore people, so I'll be quick as possible, but something that I've been talking with Ryan about on the channel here and there is that for stuffy academics like myself, this is really the next, I think the next avenue of real serious film history and scholarship is the curation that physical media producers, preservers, which is what boutique labels are, preservers, archivists, preservationists is the right word, not preservers. That's, you throw that out to a person who's drowning.
We'll throw you a Blu-ray instead. On that.
Exactly. Yeah. The films that are being rediscovered or discovered, in general, restored and released, since the beginning of home video, have really created the critical reappraisals of everyone from Dario Argento to Jess Franco. Just in the past 5-6 years, a whole new generation of people are discovering SOV videos from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s and starting to appreciate them as more than so bad they're good, but as actual like outsider art. And at a time when the studios are deleting big budget pictures for tax write-offs or continuing to drive down theatrical business, the boutique labels, sometimes in very difficult circumstances, are managing not only to survive, hopefully for a long time, but build new audiences for films that never existed before. I saw Cannibal Campout when I was 12 on a VHS tape from a mom and pop store, and now I can get it on Blu-ray stuffed with extras. Yes, please. This is a really fascinating time when the majority discourse is physical media is over, everything's streaming, but the minority is like, no, actually look at all this, right? Terra Vision just dropped like 30 titles in a day. And so I think there's going to be a lot more academic attention and books written and articles written about individuals who like you, right, who form these companies as passion projects and rescue these films and sometimes restore, like you were just saying, restore filmmakers' faith in their own film.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's very important. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people that I looked up to, growing up, because I mean, I just learned kind of like my anticipation of stuff is that whenever I saw certain video labels, like I knew
mhm.
what I was getting. When I saw stuff like, midnight releasing, or, maybe a popular, like something like I always saw remember the big Warner Brothers clamshell boxes. Every time I'd see it, I'd be like, "That's a drama. I don't want to watch it," because of what they were what they were putting out. Everything looked fancy on that. I wanted more the dingy. There's a video label, Radon, that I always paid attention to because I knew Radon was going to do something fucking weird, wild. And yeah, it's I paid attention to all of that, and that carried over to DVDs. So like when Code Red, first started back in the day, I mean Criterion on Laserdisc, Anchor Bay was a huge influence.
Yeah.
And those people that were running those labels, I could tell like, oh, this is curated. Like they want to. These movies aren't coming to them; they're going after these movies. And that's when I first caught on. And that was when I was in my teens. Even before that with the video label. The video label is different because they were obviously a lot of picking up newer films rather than curating with old films. But yeah, I got to see those DVDs, and I always admired. Like I knew when a label was putting something out, if I enjoyed the majority of that label, I was going to enjoy, that film, and that goes for anything from, European releases or what. Like I mean, even like something like Tokyo Shock at the time. When
Mhm.
I saw Tokyo Shock label, I was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna get probably something really cool or stylish or whatnot, or really gross and weird. But that always fascinated me. I don't know if you get that with Terra Vision because it's all over the place, but that's also encapsulated everything that it was at a video store for me, because I had about 4 mom and pop places that ran independently near me. I also had a Hollywood Video movie gallery and a Blockbuster. So I had like 7 video stores near me within like 5 miles. I was in my
Jeez.
glory. But that's why I got to see everything, And my whole family has been into film. Like, and not working in film, but loving, like literally loving movies and wanting to watch a movie a night. When I would tell people I'd watch a movie a day, I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like we watch movies on weekends, if that. And I'm like, no, we watch a movie a day, like our house, like maybe 2. Excuse me, you know. But my grandmother, she loved like erotic thrillers and those steamy Mark Singer. Can't think of the director's name that made most of them. But like Red Shoe Diaries, like Zalman King stuff. My great grandmother loved musicals and everything. Like my dad loved westerns and prison films. My grandfather loved war and sword and sandal stuff. My mom loved horror and slashers, but she also loved like rom-coms and things like that. And I would just go with whoever was watching me and watch whatever they wanted to watch. And then when I started learning about stuff, I would take it to them and be like, hey, you might like this. That's kind of where a lot of that started. But watching movies like with my family, I was just kind of I was brought into just kind of everything. And so I didn't really frown upon anything. I didn't frown upon like black and white films or a certain genre. So it was not in my blood. A black and white movie was equal to, Jurassic Park at the time. I mean, obviously the scale's a lot different, but I didn't think of like, ooh, that's old. It was like, oh, that's, fucking gonna be a Steven Spielberg. He directed E.T. And then, we can watch this. I wasn't really watching silent films at the time, but we watched a lot of my grandmother. She had like this. It was like oddball like Universal monster movies,
Right.
like
Mhm.
Black Canary and like stuff like that. And she had like a few of these tapes, and we would watch them, and I was just kind of enamored by like the set design and how it looked like a sound studio. And these movies like Jurassic Park, they were literally shooting on an island. I was like, holy shit! Like this is such a different scale. But I liked that about films because I got to see the world that they were in, and I was put in that world, and so yeah, it was just a wonderful kind of experience. So
Okay, quick question here, and I want to get back to your grandmother's love of erotic thrillers, but before we do,
a lot of erotic thrillers. It was a lot. I never had an awkward moment, but yeah, thinking back, I was like, man, remember just like laying how my grandmother's living room was. I was just like laying on the couch and she was up there, and I'm just like, should I be like watching like Shannon Tweed like fuck this dude like right now? Because I really like it, but like I'm watching it
yes,
with
you
my
should.
grandma.
Body Chemistry 4, Restore the Winorsky-verse, but we'll get to that later. Um, you mentioned silent film, and one of the titles that surprised me that I really wanted to ask you about was the 1911 silent film Inferno,
Yeah.
and how that came to be part of the slate, and what I'm a huge fan of silent film. I hope there are several other fans of silent film out there tonight, because I want to make sure that disc gets some attention, because I want to
No,
see
no,
more.
no. Me too. I mean, I think silent films are kind of like severely overlooked just because they're silent. I get it,
Mhm,
but sometimes great soundtrack is applied.
mhm.
That's like a lot, it amplifies the movie quite a bit. My love for silent films, and I talked about this a little bit on the show last night, is Méliès with
Yeah.
with seeing his films and his impact that cross over to every filmmaker. It all connects the dots back to Méliès and how ambitious he was. And I think I made the statement of like the first suicide, the first murder, the first like probably dog death. Even the first blackface, I think, is a Méliès film, and it's crazy that he was he was so tuned in and he did all these different things, um, and they were creative. Not the blackface thing, but everything else he did. And it was just I was always fascinated. And another big part of me is I like to sit down and like sometimes maybe put on headphones. Headphones are the best, but put on a silent film on the television and like blare like doom metal and watch this stuff. I just like it gets me really, really into it. Like crossing like doom metal and black metal with like Méliès stuff, it becomes scary. And I love that shit. So it all started with trying. I was working on a Méliès project, and through that, an opportunity came up to, and this is maybe I can clear some stuff up because I saw someone say Brad went off on a guy today on the Blu-ray forum about getting all worked up about the Inferno movie. Yeah, because like we haven't announced everything that we're doing with Inferno, so it was another one of those things that kind of like a reverse like Rocktober Blood being no one's saying 4K UHD on Rocktober Blood, but I know what people are gonna think when that hits the mainstream. They'll be like, I was duped again. And you're not being duped. It's we're taking good care of it. It's not going to be UHD, but yeah. So it's just kind of this expectation things, and kind of like how I said one thing, and then I saw like people screen capping and was like, uh-oh, Terra Vision. I'm like, we haven't announced everything we're doing with the movie yet. Like the plans are like, to me, Inferno is one of the titles that I was most excited about. One, because I love silent film. Two, I was able to get really, really creative with it. We were, because of the music, we're able to create soundtracks, and that was a huge thing for Ryan since he's a musician.
Yeah.
If no one knows, Ryan, it was like in 18 different bands that you probably know, by the way, if you listen to indie music. And like the ability to do that was really cool. How it came about was meeting Fabian, and he has access to scans and prints, and working with him on getting certain things and working with certain things, we're able to present Inferno in a different way. We are
Cool.
still working through all the kinks and everything like that, so there's no promises. It's just keep your expectations in check, but also don't assume that we're going to do one thing when we haven't said what we're doing. The only thing we said about Inferno is that we are working with a scan, which is different from a restoration, and we are working with music. So it won't be the same presentation. It will be different, but we also have a couple other things that we're working on that we hope to satisfy certain people. Again, we can't announce anything because we wanted, and this is the problem with announcing movies, is that we wanted to give people a chance, but we also can't say everything. It's not secrecy. It's just that we don't want to disappoint. You know, it'd be different if we're like, hey, we got the rights to Gator Bait 1 and 2. We have 22 reels. We're going to do UHD. We're going to do all these extras. No, we don't know yet.
Right.
I could tell you it'll be HD. And we
Oh, man,
acquired the film.
I hate to tell you, I already tweeted what you just said.
No, it's completely fine. But it's like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like the most important thing that I've learned working with labels is that you need to keep people's expectations in check, because what happens is that people talk and they wish and they want, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And it's like, yes, part of it's good for publicity. Like, for example, last night on our live stream, people kept guessing Nightmare on Elm Street. I could have played around with that and been like, I don't know, blah blah blah. But what you're going to do is people are going to think it's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
And what happens when you release blank? Not going to say it. They're going to be like, oh man, I thought it was Nightmare on Elm Street. What happens? Everybody's disappointed, and now they don't want to watch the movie you just released. You know, because they're pissed off because their expectations got out of hand. And it happens. I understand. It's how the human mind works. You know, we get worked up over things. That's why people, like, you know, you interviewed for a job, you're excited, let's go and celebrate. No, let's just relax, you know. Let's keep our expectations in check, because if you don't get the job after a night of partying and celebrating, it hurts a lot more than just when you stayed at home, maybe jerked off and played some video games and you didn't get the job. You know, so like we that's a whole thing with Terra Vision, is we don't want you to cook up these things in your head, negative or positive.
Right.
We want you to know what we're doing and being straightforward about it. And,
All right.
and we're gonna let you know when something's locked down and we're good. That's why we announce the scores, because those are signed for, they're paid for. Boom. Brad just confirmed. Yeah, tweet it. Just a disc, or not just a disc. Don and Brian Sowers too. Brian Sowers could say it. I worked with Brian for a long time.
All right, audience, you heard it. You heard it here first. Just go home, jerk off, and keep the blinds closed.
Yeah, I'm gonna do UHD and Nightmare on Elm Street, but that Infinifilm thing that they did for Blu-ray for a little while.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So speaking of Jim Winorsky, Will, you want to bring up the documentary that you're dying to hear more about?
Well, you know, I don't want to overstep, but I do have to say, when Papadopoulos came up, Papadopoulos, How to Make a Movie in 3 Days, I was very worked up, and I'll take your advice as to how to deal with that. But Papadopoulos is a great documentary from 2009. If anybody follows me on Twitter, you know that my personal hashtag is Restore the Winorsky-verse. I post it several times a week. It is, in 1 year, only one other person has ever used the hashtag, but I'm very proud of that. What I love about that documentary in particular is that it has these two great narrative threads of Winorsky making The Witches of Brestwick in 3 days, doing principal photography in 3 days. But then there's also like this story of him coming, what is it, to Indiana for a retrospective of his stuff, and these long interviews, and he's talking to his mom, and he's opening cabinets in his kitchen that have movies stuffed in them, and it's just this. If people don't know Winorsky, it's the perfect way to get introduced to his work, and if people don't like Winorsky, it's the perfect way to reappraise his work. So I was so excited to see that in the slate, and I wondered, how that kind of came across your line of sight, because it's been out of print for a while. I had a DVD from like 2009.
Yeah, that's what it was. I first saw Papadopoulos when like DVD in the mail, I think, like Netflix or whatever. And I saw the description, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was familiar with Winorsky, of course, in his films, and I know he could turn around something. But making a documentary about it was, I thought pretty fascinating. It came about because a big thing that we are pushing at Terra Vision was documentaries, and the docs. Like, to me, I mean, I love documentaries, but I can't release every documentary that I love because sometimes they're, a one and done thing. So the whole thing was when we talked about things that were rewatchable documentaries, and that was a close discussion that we had with something like, with Love and Saucers, Papadopoulos, like those things. They're very rewatchable because you kind of pick up things. They're also pretty inspiring. And also they could be a little weird. So when we talked about documentaries, rewatch value, interest from the public, of course, which Winorsky, and then, the women that he worked with, and I loved it. And I remember looking it up, and I was like, hey, is Papadopoulos like still available on DVD? And I like typed it in. This is like months and months ago. And I was on the phone with Ryan. I was like, it goes for like $300. This is fucking stupid. Like, let's put that shit out. So it was easy. I contacted Clay, and I said, hey, I was like, you own the rights to your movie back? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, hey, let's do it. Let's do a deal. Let's get it back out, do some new extras. And he was like, yeah. He's like, as long as you don't exploit the women, we're good. And I was like, not a problem. I'll let you see.
That's my first job.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like done enough. And so I said, yeah, I was like, you can have approval on all extras. So that way, nothing's said. We don't edit anything like in a way that is exploitive, or you don't, approve of or whatnot. And he was like, cool, let's do it. And then that's how it worked. And yeah, I mean, Clay was an easygoing dude, and that was a very, very simple, fast transaction. We just kind of, we wanted the film, but when we did, it just kind of like everything fell into place. It was super duper easy to work with everything. Like we did that deal probably like in 3 days,
Well, that seems appropriate.
Oh yeah, I guess no pun intended. Yeah, that's not a really joke. So, yeah, we did, within the week, I'll say, within the week, we had the deal done. It was mainly just, getting the elements together. And then shooting new extras, which we've done stuff with Jim and Clay already. And we'll have, of course, some other stuff that pops up. We're going to try to get the girls and whatnot who want to do an interview. I don't think Stormy is going to be available, but hey, we'll see.
That is awesome. Will is going to be so excited for that.
Yeah, so we're excited because it is, I think, at this point, kind of underseen documentary. Because it came out of time where fans really loved it, and then it was quickly, I think, forgotten about. No one brings it up anymore. So
yeah, well, and it sounds like I need to sell my DVD quickly since the current price will pay for my subscription to Terra Vision. So
yeah, no, sometimes you could do that. If you catch wind, just put it on eBay. I'll sell for a bunch of money. I'll never forget. I put back in the day when Screen Factory first announced, I think one of their 6 releases of Night of the Demons. They came out, and I had a DVD, and I put the DVD on eBay, and it went for like $100. And I was like, jeez. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I didn't ask for $100. I put up for like $5. I was like, it'd be cool if I got like 10 out of this. I put it on eBay, and it like skyrocketed. I was like, are you serious? This comes out like in a couple weeks. So, quick, Brad, top 3 '90s erotic thrillers. Uh, Body Chemistry 2, Animal Instincts, um, and then The Masseuse, maybe Night Eyes. Night Eyes is really good. I probably went really deep on those, aside from Body Chemistry. But erotic thrillers, like, and they're very run of the mill, very basic. What makes a good erotic thriller is the cinematography in these. Because, like, if you had like, like some of your Gregory Dark movies and whatnot, like, I forget the one dude who shot so many of these, and then he ended up working for like Marvel or some shit. I can't remember his name. I tried to get him for an interview on a movie that he did that when I was at BS, and I was like, who shot this? And I was like, oh shit! I looked him up. And I'm like, oh my god, this guy is like fucking Hollywood, man. Like, we're not gonna get this dude, and we didn't. But yeah, Wally Pfister. Yeah, so if Wally shoots something, it's gonna look fucking great, man. Wally's insane. But yeah, it's it all has to balance into like cinematography, and then sometimes the stars, like if Julie Strain is in something, I'm there. Shannon Tweed's and I'm there. Mark Singer, anything like that, I'm always on board. There's actually a movie with Shannon Tweed, Julie Strain, and Mark Singer. It's not very good, but I do love it. I have all the promo photos from that movie, all their behind the scenes photos they took together. I got them from Julie. I miss Julie. She was a friend of mine.
As you're on the thread of favorite erotic thrillers, earlier we had somebody asks your favorite SOV films. Any few that you would throw out there?
Blonde Death is probably my number one. Burglar from Hell, I really love. Saturn Score put that out. I was heartbroken. And I mean, the last one I always kind of leave open for whatever I'm in the mood for. But if I had to top it off, I would I don't know. There's a lot of weird shit. I'd probably say Hawk Jones, maybe.
That's a good answer.
I really love.
Yeah,
I mean, SFV is super special to me because ever since I was the little kid, I wanted to make a movie. I made my own shot on video movie when I was like, I don't know, 8. The only thing that remains is a picture. I tweeted about it not too long ago. I had like silver face or some shit. I was a killer killing my family. But shot on video is special because it's like a stepping stone into the world of filmmaking. Is learning how to hold a camera, learning cinematography. You got to work a little bit harder since how it looks, and it's a very particular thing in order to get right. And like something like Copperhead versus Cannibal Campout, you could see the big differences on kind of the production value and how it was done. I mean, these movies were shot pretty much with fucking homemade video cameras for the most part. Some, a little bit better than others. Yeah, I just always fascinated me because it's like backyard filmmaking, like watching a movie that you made with your friends, and they're easy to watch.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to watch, and I don't know, they're really inspiring. That's why, like, with us putting out Shrek, I'm super excited about, because that movie is made by people like us. It's perfect. I saw someone say, "Bring back the SOV pod."
Yeah.
I wish that was a fun, but it was so much of an act. I mean, it was just all goofiness. We were never serious about anything other than kind of just talking about our love for the film. But yeah, Ozone's great. Video Violence is great. Sledgehammer's great. Leaf Yonkers Darkness, not shot on video, but definitely has the aesthetic. But I love Darkness so much. But again, it's one of those movies that you feel like film on drugs as teenagers with your friends. And then Red Spirit Lake, it's fine. It's fine. Cards of Death is great. I love Cards of Death. Somebody should put that on Blu-ray. I don't know who owns it anymore. It just has that. I think they did a DVD. They did a VHS for sure, the big box, which was like limited to like 100. So silly. I think they did it. I think they did a DVD later on because I think they caught on that Bleeding Skull needed to do DVDs. I know they did Blonde Death because I was ecstatic. I wish we could do Blonde Death, but it's already spoken for. It's a bummer. I hate it.
One of the things I definitely want to bring up right now is the love of Indonesian films. We got Escape from Hellhole coming. This one is out for everybody now. I just watched this over the last week, and man, that movie looks really good, first of all, and it's fun. So fun.
Yeah, my love for Indonesia, I mean, I love for foreign cinema in general. I mean, I honestly, it's when I say I watch a movie a day at this point, it's usually something foreign. Just because I feel like I don't know, it's hard to find unless it's like maybe a 40s drama or something, 50s drama that I'm not really into watching.
Right.
But I don't know if I'm gonna. What was the thing? Killing Spree? Oh yeah, Killing Spree shot on film. It looks like it's shot on video. Trust me, it does. I don't fault anybody that thinks that, but yeah, it's Killing Spree is shot on 16. Master's long gone. It's a tape master that Ritter wanted to do that he wanted to improve on. Looks good. I think it looks good. It looks better than SRS release, which Ron did a great job not knocking that. Ron Wong SRS, if anybody cares. Ron's been in this business for a long time, way longer than I have, and a lot of other people that are in this business right now. But yeah, my speaking, just if you spoke about Indonesian film, Indonesia was just a country that wanted to kind of do everything, and they did it so quickly and so fast, and they just like they try to do everything, whether it's a comedy, drama, and just these small studios would just kind of go all out, but mainly their action, their horror films. It was like everybody's on fucking drugs or something. I don't know. They're all crazy. And it's just every time I watch like an Indonesian like action or horror film, this is gonna be some wild shit or cool shit or rip-off stuff. That's always cool. Like I love rip-offs. Because I look at it, they're just inspired by it. I mean, you can see that with Srigala. Srigala is not a remake of Friday the 13th. It is inspired by Friday the 13th and has a couple things that, mimic the picture, especially the last 20 minutes of the movie. But for the most part, it kind of stands on its own. And it's more feels Italian influenced than anything else, not so much, because this is like Srigala is like one of the very first out of that realm of things, other than some 70s stuff. But a lot of those were focused on I can never pronounce it, but it's the Snake Queen mythology and stuff. There's a million Snake Queen movies and stuff Jaka Semberg really got me into films with anything that Barry Primo was in. The Jaka Semberg films are always up. Sometimes I mispronounce these things, but it's fine. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the Jaka Semberg films, which I think somebody already has, because I tried to get them and they weren't available, and I was really sad about that. Yeah, it's the things that I'm interested in are the things that didn't really get much love, or they're just absolutely kind of insane, something like Double Sword, which I think is the most, probably a smarter label would have released Double Sword first and then Escape from Hellhole and then Srigala. But I was really into Srigala because it was one of those films that I saw for years, not subtitled. And I just love the visuals of it. And it was just always super low res. And my dream was to always get that movie out. That's been a long dream of mine.
Right.
And I worked on Srigala for a long time. And I just wanted people to see it, know that it exists, rather than being bootlegged and talked about. or watched without subtitles, which, I've done too, like they're unavailable, but there are some subtitle tricks that work now that are really, really great. So I don't have a problem actually creating my own anymore. But yeah, I was just really happy that we were able to do that. And I love Indonesian cinema mainly because of all of that. And Ryan was a huge fan of Escape from Hellhole. I like it too, but he was a way, way bigger fan. I'm a bigger fan of Devil's Sword. And yeah, it's going to be the bigger film. And I figure we can do a little bit more extras. That's the reason why it was changed up like that. Which I was so happy with. I think we had 4 interviews on the Shrigala disc, which is crazy. And Barry Prima never does an interview. And it just so happened it was through a friend of mine, which again, I'll shout out to Timo, director of Night Comes for Us. And, what's that other film that he did? Killers? Is it called Killers? Bloodshot? Gunshot. Headshot. Jesus. But yeah, Timo's a good buddy of mine. We met at a festival years ago. He's an Indonesian filmmaker. Him and Joko Anwar kind of came about. Joko did the remake of Satan's Slaves. Timo did a movie, original film. It wasn't a remake, but it's called The Devil May Take You. And then he also did a sequel called A Devil May Take You 2, TOO. And yeah, Timo's really into this type of stuff. And I actually reached out to him and I said, hey, you're obviously working with Gravity Films. Can you put me in touch? Because these guys are you're just not picking up the phone and calling Gravity Films or looking it up online. They don't even have a fucking functioning website, And so, yeah, he put me in touch with the fucking owners and it was great. I just told them how much I loved their films and how important their studio was to me. And I was like, can you give me permission to do any of this stuff? I'd love to bring it stateside. And with that, they were very into it. I mean, they licensed some films to Severin, so they're, used to that. But I really wanted to, take the time, and not Severin didn't. Severin did a great job, with Primitives and Satan's Slaves and everything. But I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to get people like Barry, which is, I don't know if Barry's done any interviews. I think he did something with Pete Toombs back in the day, not on he did something on the Devil's Sword disc. I can't remember, but it's been he's been known to lie. He just sits down and tells stories and jokes and everything. He owns hotels and shit in Indonesia now. And it was through a friend. I said, hey, I think Barry do an interview and get it straight. And they're like, yeah. I mean, it's short, but I mean, Barry said, he said some cool things in that interview. He said he learned how to scuba dive, because of Srigala. And that's something he still does, and he learned a lot. And I think on that disc, you learn that his name isn't really Barry Prima. You got Prima because of Primitives. So that's how his last name came about, which I was like, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Yeah, it was just really cute to kind of get all these people together that, it was funny. I have a bunch of behind the scenes photos that I'll post one day, but they took photos of Barry and everybody in Rappy Studios. And they have these huge posters of the old movies, originals,
Nice.
him and Gope, which is the main dude there, who's still kicking and started the company. But yeah, the Santani brothers and sons, father, they're all really wonderful, and they've really appreciated us. Even we did Screen Shrigala last night in LA, and we didn't get theatrical on that movie. And just because it's something that when we acquired it, we weren't thinking no one's going to pay attention to Terra Vision anyway, so why bother getting theatrical? So we acquired the movie and everything, and then Evram, my buddy Evram Esroy, he does Motel. Oh my God, it's in Brazil or something. The film festival out there. He does Beyond Fest in LA. And he's good friends with James and the guys at Cinematic Void, Grant, and everybody at the AC. And he was like, hey, he's like, I think they kind of want to show Srigala. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's never played anywhere outside Indonesia, like in the theater. Like it maybe played in Thailand, maybe, but they can't remember. But anyways, I was like, that'd be insane. So I went to Rappy and I was like, hey, can we like work out a deal? And they're like, oh no, you can just show it. And I was like, oh, yeah, all right, cool. So they just said, do it, and that was crazy. But it was cool is that we were able to create a DCP for Rappy so they can play it theatrically again. So I think they're going to work on something in Indonesia, bringing the film back out in the theaters, and that's like our
awesome.
DCP. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I was like, we can create this for you, and then you can do it in theaters. And they're like, oh shit, that's great, because they've already played the restoration on television.
And that was the cool thing about the extras on that disc. All of the interviews, they're all so positive. They're all looking back fondly on this as this wonderful experience. Seemed like they had hell of a good time back then. And many of these other boutiques wouldn't necessarily fight or even be able to get interviews like this on this disc. So I'm stoked on that. And that, kind of leads into this question from Joe Jack a minute ago. Has your philosophy on extras changed at all, leaving Vinegar Syndrome and starting Terra Vision with Ryan?
No, I kind of created my own philosophy at VS, so I didn't really have anything that I had to change. At VS, I never really needed like help per se. I was kind of on my own, which isn't a bad thing. I don't mean that in a negative way whatsoever, but they trusted me and I was fine on my own. Like you
Right.
could tell me to go do something and I can complete it by myself, whether I know how to do it or not. Because I'm not ignorant, I know how to ask for help. I'll go to somebody and be like, hey, I'm dumb. How do I do this? So, when I very first started Elijah Drenner, like Elijah's kind of like a god to me. He just knows everything. And he's so good at putting things together. He knows what works. He's so brutally honest. I could be like, hey, let's do this. And be like, no. He's like, we'll do it so you can see it. And then I'm going to show you my way and tell you why you're wrong. And I'm like, okay. And then I'd watch it and be like, yeah, it doesn't fucking work. You're right. But I learned a lot from Elijah, just on a more creative stance, working with DPs, trusting a DP, which I do, because that's going to make or break your film. It's also going to make or break your interviews, which is not everything I shot and had shot looks good, because sometimes it's just resources. We've had bad experience with shooting. There was one with The Fear with Ron Ford's interview where the person hooked me up and they were like, hey, I'm transferring the film, like the footage, and I got it. It was like 700 megabytes or something. And I was like, what would you shoot, like a minute? Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh no, I uploaded it from my DV camera. And I was like, a DV camera? And I was like, bro, I was like, oh. And they're like, oh, I told you I didn't have an updated camera. And I was like, I'm sorry. I've been at this for a while. When you say updated camera, I'm thinking you're talking about like fucking Red or like some fucking new Canon 20K camera. You're shooting on. He's like, do you own an iPhone? Yes. You could have shot on that, dude, and it looked better. Like I've had people shoot interviews on iPhones for extras. And so like, there's like that incident. But as far as philosophy, no, because I feel like I implemented something and I hope, carries on and follows. But I look at it and I tell all extras this, or all the people that are in extras as far as talent, actors, whatnot. And I tell this if they're excited or if they don't want to do it, is that this is pretty much the last time this is going to happen. So let's do it. Like probably someone's not going to come along and redo this. Like someone's going to be dumb enough to try to like fucking re-release Shrek or some shit, morons going to try to release a movie like that. Something like Copperhead. Let's release let's do a Blu-ray, a cassette tape a VHS, and a record. 20 hours of extra features on one disc, a bonus movie of an obscure movie that no one knows, and let's see if we can make a buck. No,
Yeah, in
man,
2023, no problem.
we're so fucking in the hole on Copperhead. It's ridiculous. We're not even out of the extras budget. I'm kidding. Copperhead's actually done pretty well, but yeah, no, Copperhead was just one of those things where it's like, let's take a chance. And we talked to a few of the people that wanted to, that were in the film, and I was like, this is the last chance, and they're like, okay. I was like, you okay? You don't care about the movie? Let's move on. We had plenty of extras, obviously, because Ross and his parents were wonderful at doing anything. Ross was the son that's in the film. He actually ended up shooting like all the extras, and that worked really well because it was so homely, with like kind of just them as a family. And it's actually really bittersweet, like the extras. And there's a cute thing where they watch the movie and then they talk about it and whatnot. And Leland and is kind of funny in his own way, and Crystal is the same too, and they're just really kind of cute together. But yeah, it was. I always approach it that is like, this is going to be the last time it's done. And I mean, I'm not going to lie that sometimes when I turn stuff on at BS and there's like a budget of extras, and I never forget. This isn't a negative thing. It's not like I got in trouble. It was just kind of, it's funny, is that I remember, because sometimes they just set me loose, right? I'm doing acquisitions, I'm doing extras, and then they're like, hey, the due date's now. What's going on? And it's like, oh, here you go. Here's your extras. And it's like, cool. And I turned in Hard Rock Zombies. And it was like 2 hours of extras. And I remember just saying, like, it was 2 hours of extras on Hard Rock Zombies. I was like, yeah, I found the whole entire band. I found multiple people. It's like 20 people involved in the fucking making of. Awesome. And then I went back and shot extra stuff because I found people later. And it's like 2 hours of extras on Hard Rock Zombies. It's a double feature with Slaughterhouse Rock. And I was like, yeah, one time. This is it. No one's going to release Hard Rock Zombies again.
Right.
It's not that good. I wanted to make a piece that was better than the movie. And I think we did. Rebecca and I worked pretty hard on that. Rebecca's great. She's a great Rebecca Howard is her name, Joe Lynch's girlfriend. Yeah, she's a great editor, and she's funny. She gets it, and she's very creative. And I could just say, make it fun. I don't have time to watch 30 hours of footage. You're the editor. You're better at that than I am. I'm just going to watch it and not know what to pick. I'll put it all in, do this Scorsese special feature piece. But yeah, she did a great job, and I turned that in. It was just kind of funny because it's like 2 hours extras of Hard Rock Zombies. I guess we're doing that. And I'm like, yeah, it's fucking cool, So yeah, it's just like, long story short, the philosophy was to try to get as much as possible. Like, the honest answer is these people are going to be dead soon. And
that's
we
true.
need to get them on camera, talk about what they love, so that's way it's there forever. I mean, that's the honest answer.
And that's the people that can give the best context, literally.
Yeah, and the best content is when. So if you ask an actor, it's like, hey, we're doing a re-release of this movie, blah blah blah. Oh yes, I love that movie. I can tell you so many stories. And I guarantee you they have the worst fucking stories, nor they remember anything. It's the people are like, oh yeah, that fucking movie, I don't want to be a part of that. Right. It's like, oh come on. I was like, I'm a huge fan. I grew up on this movie. My mom used to show it to me, and now she's dead. Well, try to, like, my mom's not dead. I was just joking around. But try to talk about it a little bit, and they're like, oh yeah, we did this once. I did this one scene, right? And I'm like standing on this ledge, and the director, and he didn't even look to where I was jumping. It was hilarious. And then I met this other, and I'm like, oh cool, you want to do an interview? Yeah, I guess so. You know, it just takes some time because they look at these things and they're like, oh, this piece of shit that I did in the fucking 80s. And it's like, once they start talking about it, you know, that's kind of like with Primal Rage. I don't want to talk too much about VS stuff because I technically shouldn't, but this is just extras. So I could talk about this. We're done with VS talk after this. Patrick Lowe, who is part of the extras in Primal Rage, who's the lead in it, who was also the boyfriend in Slumber Party Massacre 2. He's just gone. Like, no one knows where the fuck Patrick was. And I asked a bunch of people, and just couldn't find him. And I just was taking a gamble, and I saw this fucking dude, like some lawyer guy, like a LinkedIn photo. And it was that smile that Patrick has. You know, he's got that really pretty smile. And I was like, that guy got a pretty smile. That's him. And I called up. So funny. I called his office and spoke to his secretary. And I'm like, hey, I was like, is Mr. Patrick Lowe there? And she's like, yeah. I was like, can I speak to him? And she's like, what is this about? And I'm like, I was like, is it maybe a movie that he maybe was in? Because I don't want to embarrass anybody. Because sometimes people hide from their past. So he's in a movie maybe in the 80s. And she's like, I don't think so, you know, like that. And so you know, I get put on hold, and then I hear, hello. I'm like, is this Mr. Patrick Lowe? And he's like, yes, who is this? And I was like, were you in Slumber Party Massacre 2? And he's like, how do you know? Where did you get this number? And it's like, I don't know if he's mad or if he's cool. And then it's like, he's like, I love these movies. He's like, I never thought I would talk about them ever again. And Patrick's been like fucking ape shit over like Primal Rage forever. And it's cool because I'm working on a Slumber Party Massacre 2 thing, and you know, he's going to be involved with that, and he's very energetic about everything. And he's just like, I'm a lawyer now, and I tried to like, you know, I didn't want to be an actor anymore, but I love what I did, and he's just so fucking cool. But yeah, you know, just things like that. You just never know what you're going to get on the other end of the phone. But enough of the VS talk.
I just want to say I love that interview. The Patrick Lowe interview on Primal Rage was a great interview.
Yeah, he carried the whole piece. Like, we used him so much because he kind of had like a very good story, but it was also sad because he wanted to continue acting, but he's like, I just kind of like stopped. And it was like, I was like, oh man, like you probably wouldn't have done fucking, you know, been in 7 or something, but you know, you probably would have been in some more films and maybe had some more fun.
Right.
But yeah, it was kind of like heartfelt because he was like, yeah, it kind of sucked. It was a moment where it was like, he really wishes he was still an actor. And that was pretty cool. Yeah.
I got to tell you, the very first movie I ever bought and what led to my whole life was a $3.99 VHS copy of Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Was it when they were liquidating the Concord tapes at every video store in I'm the Man?
Yeah, this was 1996. So
yeah, it was probably that big setup, and they just had hundreds. I remember going in to Movie Gallery and Blockbuster, and they just had all these fucking Slumber Party 1, 2, and 3, Sorority House Massacre 1 and 2 with the new Concord gold sleeves. And I was like, yes! And I grabbed them off the fucking shelf, and I was like, brand new tapes. You know, they're probably fucking hundreds now, but oh god, who fucking cares?
I got that tape, and he immediately became my favorite Lowe, even though he's a separate Lowe. It's a distinct Lowe.
He could have played the Rob Lowe thing for a while, I imagine, but people would have come out.
I thought for sure he was a brother for.
Oh, I asked him. I said, "You're not like Rob Lowe's like nephew, right?" He's like, "Nope." He's like, "I get it all the time," and I was like, "You probably got a few ladies' numbers by doing that."
Yeah, you know, the resemblance.
Your cute little smile, Patrick Lowe. You son of a bitch, playing fucking football, Primal Rage, that killer ass song that plays in the beginning.
Oh my god.
Well, I know one of Will's favorite movies is Gator Bait, and we got all kinds of titles here that were listed last night.
Oh, I can't even see that. Hopefully, you can see that. I'm blind.
Here, let's do this.
Oh
yeah.
shit! I gotta turn down my brightness. Now my eyes hurt. You're making my pituitary andro whatever act up.
We got Inferno, Nailgun Massacre, Slashers, Gator Bait, Gator Bait 2, Hollowgate, City Lights catalog.
Oh, the City Lights catalog, the big drop that I probably shouldn't have said. Kirk Douglas video scrapbook?
Technically, that is attributed to them, so I just said, hey, it's a possibility. Is that not a part of it?
Oh my god!
I actually have. I have.
Okay,
that,
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're not doing.
That helps.
We can play a game. Which 5?
There you go.
Well, I know Will has to have some Gator Bait questions here.
I actually, you know what? After this, I'm going to look for the Kirk Douglas scrapbook thing and put it as an extra. No, the City Lights stuff. I think there's an issue online with the City Lights International versus the City Lights Entertainment. Yep. And I think they're getting cross-referenced because someone said Terra Vision's releasing 165 movies. And I'm like, no. City Lights did like fucking like 13 at the most.
Jesus.
But yeah, no, it's not that hard to figure out. But that I actually like the speculation because, you know, either there's only like you're gonna pick Kirk Douglas's scrapbook as a guess, and if when we don't do it, you're gonna be like, yes. If anybody's like, fuck, I thought the Kirk Douglas scrap, I'm coming after you. It's like, man, I thought that was coming out. That was my grandma's favorite. I used to
okay, so
actually, some shit.
I actually have the Kirk Douglas scrapbook, and I was kind of excited to get rid of my DVD. So that
I have no idea even what that is.
I've already deleted it from the list. Don't worry.
but yeah, it's yeah. There's 13 or 14. All of them is happening. Like it's the entire City Lights catalog, which was I have been working on for, I would say, a good 7 years.
Jesus.
I was doing this for Wild Eye. I talked to Rob and I said, I want to resurrect the City Lights catalog for, you know, it was called something else that he was doing before it was Visual Vengeance. That's his own thing. It was something called, it was a different name. No reason to say it. But I said, I want to do it. I want to do the, you know, the logo. I want to recreate everything. I mean, they never even had an animated logo. It was fucking edited on video, so they usually just put some bland font on the movies. Yeah, I worked so hard on finding all of those elements and then doing the rights. The City Lights stuff changed hands. So it was owned by a children's home video company. Their films for like a few years.
Weird.
It's weird. Yeah. But yeah, it's the thing that's stopping the City Lights stuff from coming out sooner is just the participation with everybody behind it because they're all fucking all-stars now. So they're all like pretty big people, like in the industry, not industry, but like alone. Like Joseph Mary like owns like 800 fucking hotels, and like he's a rich motherfucker. Like there's this really cool video on YouTube, a guy that goes around talking to like people in LA, and he interviews Joseph Mary, and the dude, he's humble as shit. Joseph's like really nice, but that dude is fucking loaded. And Richard Munchkin, he's a professional poker player, like high stakes poker player, and does apparently very well. So yeah, they all have like these very different lives, and I just want to make sure, you know, we get their stories, because they pioneered something. I don't even think it's really been discussed in depth of what they did to the industry. Because we may talk about City Lights and PM Entertainment stuff being great, but it did crazy fucking numbers on video, and it kind of evolutionized the whole action movement with
Right.
like stuff with that Isaac Florentine was doing in the 90s and so on. And we still wouldn't, I don't think we would have like the Scott Adkins and like Gary Daniels people if it wasn't for these types of movies, because they really pioneered this like I don't give a fuck action step, this direction that they went. Because I mean, we have always had action movies, but we didn't have these action movies where let's throw that guy off a building. What's he going to land on? It's like, I don't know. Put a tarp there,
Right.
you know. And it's just this unhinged style of filmmaking that we're doing. And it's the City Lights stuff is cool because it's their first step into insanity. You know, you have insane stories that they're, you know, these insane movies and the plots they were doing, like Mayhem, you know, where it's like, let's fucking kill child molesters, but we're also really bad people, but we're gonna kill worse people. And it's like, what? Like, this is crazy. You know, putting guns in people's vaginas and fucking setting them off. Gator Bait. That happens in Gator Bait too. The Gator Bait, the first Gator Bait, not Gator Bait 2. But yeah, it's just this approach that they had to these like sleazy, like neo noir movies that they were doing, and that's exactly what they are. They're just super sleazy, like I call it like super sleazy, like neo tech noir movies that were shot on 16 millimeter that they just didn't give a fuck.
Nice.
You know, and they did some action, you know, or some horror films. And like those are good, like Hollow Gate and stuff, which is goofy. Hollow Gate's one of the films that they weren't that involved with, so it's an oddball, and that one's fun. It's still made by the same people, but they took a step back because Ray can't pronounce DiZapito or something like, I can't remember. I can never pronounce his last name, but he directed that one. Like Munchkin, Pepin, Mary, they all kind of directed the others. But he did the one Hollow Gate, and it's the one that stands out the most, other than the Newly Deads, which the Newly Deads was my first City Lights movie ever, and I was very young, and I loved it. And the last City Lights movie that I ever saw, because I saw them all, but there was one that I didn't see, and I saw it probably about, I'd say about more than 10 years ago. I was at a party in Austin. My buddy was hosting a David the Rock Nelson tribute. David the Rock Nelson came out, and they did like a compilation of like 2 hours. It was like greatest hits of his 800 movies he's ever made that are 10 hours long a piece. And I was fascinated that they actually cut this like 2 hour piece together of like his greatest hits. If you don't know who David the Rock Nelson is, he is absolutely DIY filmmaker that's existed for many, many years. And I don't think he knows how many films he's made, probably hundreds. And none of them are really on IMDb. I'm in one of them. I don't even know which one. I know it's one of the Devil Ant sequels. He had me get attacked by a devil ant under the Austin Bat Bridge. And then he went around throwing the rubber ant at strangers and getting their reactions to put it in the movie. All being shot on video and still editing from tape deck to tape deck after all these years. But anyways, long story short, I mean, I love talking about David the Rock Nelson. He's hilarious. But we went, and it was a movie night, because they all lived in Austin, and they said, "Hey, have you seen this movie called Fresh Kill?" I was like, "Oh shit, no, I haven't. I've been wanting to see it because it's like the last City Lights movie." I cried so hard because I laughed so goddamn hard in Fresh Kill. It is the best out of all the City Lights movies, but probably the one that people would be less interested in, because it's not an action movie. It's some weird drama with meat and acting. He's a meat handler, not like in that way. He works at a meat market. He's a wannabe actor, and he gets caught up in some drama, and it is so dramatic. There's a slow-mo with cocaine. It is wonderful. It's such an odd movie, and that's like my number one. No one's gonna fucking want. I'm gonna
Now,
make.
I'm dying for
What
it.
I'll probably do is I'll probably make some like crazy nice box set, and Fresh Kill's gonna be right in the middle, and you have to buy it in order to complete it. And hopefully you'll watch it, unwrap it, and watch it.
Well, you could maybe work with Severin and include like some cocaine infused meat as an extra tchotchke.
Cook up some cocaine meat. Watch for.
Yeah.
I mean, that would work.
Boutique's taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
Gator Bait, Will, I know that you had at least one or two that you wanted to ask.
Well, I hate to bring up Gator Bait, but I need to bring up Gator Bait. I, like many people of my generation, I was introduced to Gator Bait by Joe Bob Briggs. Probably the ultimate of the Hicksploitation or Cajunsploitation films. The star vehicle for Claudia Jennings, the definitive film series by Ferd and Beverly Sebastian, and one that has never gotten a high definition or any kind of special. Didn't even have a special DVD release. I don't
No, they
believe.
didn't. They basically bootlegged their own movie.
Yeah, my copies are both bootlegs. So
I mean, it's by the Sebastians though, so it's technically not bootleg, but that shit is. It's a bootleg.
Right.
That shit's homemade.
So when I saw these films listed, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be a major seller, because so many people, I have to assume I'm not the only one, so many people have been waiting for Gator Bait, especially with the sort of resurgence of interest in what some people call the redneck or the Hicksploitation film, and Claudia Jennings' work in various Corman movies like The Great Texas Dynamite Chase, and even her final film appearance, right, in David Cronenberg's Fast Company. I mean, she's kind of an icon of that that particular brand of 70s exploitation. So can you talk a little bit about Gator Bait, about how you managed to get those 22 reels that you're working through,
it's with Gator Bait, obviously been a favorite of mine for a long time. I saw it very, very young, because my dad really, really loved anything like woodsy, like so Deliverance and I Spit on Your Grave and Gator Bait was always being played at the house. I saw I Spit on Your Grave when I was like 3 or something, 4 years old. Loved it. Actually, that's the one movie I didn't grow old with. I don't really care for I Spit on Your Grave anymore, but I liked it back at that time. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, it's not my thing. I prefer, like, if we do pick like rape revenge stuff, I'm into a little bit more different types of films like Gator Bait. But yeah, Gator Bait was just something because the front cover of the sequel was something that just kind of stayed like in my mind forever. You know, like the jacket with the boobs. I was just like, oh man, I want to see that movie. And I was very young, so the image. So when we rented that tape, I don't remember watching the movie per se. Part 2. I remember watching the first one. I was still pretty young. I don't know. I think the only thing I really remember from it was the vagina gun. That's the only thing I really because that's such a crazy ass scene. That's what like stuck in my brain the most. And I watched it when I was a teenager again and got used to it. But a lot of films that I saw probably under the age of like 7, unless it like had something super scary or like it had that moment, I don't really remember watching. I don't think anybody does. Like movies I remember that were traumatic were Midnight Intruders, which is a Gary Graver movie, which I thought was a horror film, and it turns out to be a home invasion rape movie. Way too much sex in that for like a 7-year-old. And stuff like Child's Play, Like when Annie's mom discovers there's no batteries in Chucky and his head turns around and he says, I'm Chucky from play.
Oh yeah.
Shit fucking terrified me. I still think it's one of the scariest moments in a horror film is when that doll, and it's not Chucky yet. He doesn't say, you fucking bitch, you fucking cunt. You know, I always like that part. But yeah, it's right when the head turns around and she throws him under the couch. And I was like, fuck, this movie's going to be insanely scary. But yeah, like things like that. So, but yeah, Gator Bait was always on my radar. I've known the Sebastians for a while. They don't live too far away from me.
Oh.
So how I met the Sebastians was actually out of it ended up being kind of a shitty story. I hosted a podcast called Screamcast for many years with Sean DeRegger, Ryan Sowers on the show, BJ Colangelo at one time. And we did this show for a long time, and we did a heavy metal horror month. So we did, we had John, known as Thor, on the show. We had Cynthia Sorrell, which was John Fasano's wife, who wrote, Black Roses and The Jitters, and a porno called Driller that is somewhat well known. She wrote it under a different name, but that was her. And we had the Sebastians on, and then we had a good friend I miss, Mike Patton, who wrote the heavy metal horror book. He was on the show too, and we did, I think, 4 weeks. And I had the Sebastians on. Ferd was still alive at the time, and they were just very. I reached out to him and I said, "Hey," I was like, would you like to talk about like October Blood and just kind of exploitation films in general? You guys are kind of pioneers during that time, and probably inspired like a ton of people and still do. And yeah, they said Bev was like, "Yeah, we found God, and we help prisoners. They have like a program where the prisoners come and they take care of these greyhounds that rescue greyhounds." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then I was like, "Okay, well that's cool." And they're like, "Oh no, we'll talk about it. We just don't we just don't do it anymore." And I was like, "So you're cool with talking about all these movies like Vagina Guns and stuff?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Cool, let's be on the show." So they came on. We mainly talked about Rocktober Blood, and they announced that they're doing this Blu-ray on the show. And at the time, I was pretty wet behind the ears on everything. I wasn't working at VS. I was doing some side work for Wild Eye. I knew a couple things like at VS. That memory's a little foggy when that kind of started. But I was like, holy shit, we just had an exclusive. And as a podcast, you could tell exclusives are pretty fucking cool, So we promoted, they were doing a Blu-ray. I was like, this is cool, blah, blah, blah. And they have this promotion. They're doing Rocktober Blood 2. Their son, who plays Billy in the film, he's coming back as Billy's back. And they're doing all this like bullshit of like this website, sequel, Indiegogo, Blu-ray. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. This is wonderful. This is cool. I can't believe we have this exclusive. And then, the show ended and, all this press, like we were getting like, our podcast was being featured in like, other websites and October Blood. And I'm like, man, this is fucking great. So I was like, and I started getting more into like home video because I want to start. I was like talking to them and I was like, everything they're saying is wrong though. And I was like, what are you sourcing from? And they're like, a 35 millimeter print. And I was like, from where? And they're like, oh, at our house. And I was like, no, you don't probably have a scanner. And I was like, man, so I was talking to like, Tracy, who goes by Trey. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And they showed me like a picture of it. And I'm like, oh shit, this is like no, don't buy, like, don't. And by this time, the campaign's already like reached its limit. And, like, things are shipping and everybody gets these Blu-rays and they're all fucked up and it's this like it's not a very good tape transfer. And I was like, oh my god, I was like, this sucks. And I felt kind of responsible for it because I pushed it. And it was like he just like they just kind of disappeared, from everything because they were getting so much hate, rightfully so. But I kept in touch with Bev because it wasn't really Bev's fault, and neither was it with Bird. So talking with his family over and over, and I went back to him a few years ago. And we talked about Gator Bait. And it was kind of a brief discussion. Elements were gone, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, that's a little tough. Let's just keep in touch. And then when everything kind of moved to Terra Vision, I was like, well, I kind of still want to release the movies. Even if they are tape transfers. Gator Bait Films lost, October Blood's lost. Rocktober Blood was confirmed, like I do know that, but Gator Bait was just kind of like, I was like, but it played theatrically. It's got to be somewhere. Like Prince would made of this movie. Like this was a wide release at the time. This is what made the Sebastian millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just kind of worked. I was working with Ben, who's another son, who's much more level-headed and understands, and I didn't have to deal with anybody else, mainly just Bev and Ben, and they've been great. And so we did a lot of talking, lots of phone calls, talking to Ben every single day, and just talking about his family's legacy, his mom, cementing what his dad did. His dad, obviously did a ton, and just building trust and understanding and helping them find these elements. And so we got a lead from something that Ben came up with. And, we made some phone calls and it's like, hey, can you go check here, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to give too much details because some of that stuff is kind of private because it gives away certain things and also competitors and whatnot. So I don't like to broadcast. This is the thing. It's not secrecy against the everything's there's no label wars. There's a lot of competition. And you don't want to that sometimes carry over and people know secrets. A lot of secrets in the sense of how I do things because I have almost mastered certain things of finding things and finding people. I'm fucking Liam Neeson and Taken. With film rights and shit. So we got a lead, and I made some phone calls. I did some checking. Paid a few people to go look at certain things, and they came back and they were like, "We have 22 reels."
Jesus.
And I was like, "You got to be fucking kidding me!" I was like, "Are they labeled?" And they kind of had some labeling on them. And what I can tell by the labeling and the pictures is that it looks like Gator Bait has an IP, which is interpositive, which is possible UHD, depending on how good a condition it was, which it was pretty well preserved. So we just have to inspect it, which hasn't been done yet because we had to purchase the reels and then have them shipped. So already we're 2 months in the hole.
Money in it. Yeah.
And we also paid for the rights for the film. So we're high in the negative. And scanning all these films, I mean, I said on the show last night, typical movies are 4 reels. So technically we should have 8, but we have 22. So they all have to be scanned. I always do this. They all have to be clean. They all have to be inspected, which both of those things cost money. You pay per foot. This is why people buy their own scanners, but scanners are like $1 million. Like, not joking. Good scanners are like the brand new like laser graphics like 10 Director X is like fucking like the gold standard, but it's like millions of dollars. And then you have to pay someone to run it. You also have to pay for storage. You have to build a facility. You just can't do this shit in your living room.
Oh, God.
Your Blu-rays probably don't look really good, and you're working off a Black Magic scanner in your bathroom, which is you can do. But it doesn't look great. It's passable, kind of. But yeah, I'm not gonna buy a Black Magic scanner because it's like several $1,000s.
Right.
I want the gold standard, the brand new thing. And you pay us to scan your films, that sort of thing. But we just don't have the infrastructure for that.
Not yet.
You saw the crew of Terra Vision last night in the live stream.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Aside from Keen that helps us and Earl. But for the most part, that's it.
And that's
So,
why last night was so awesome.
What is that?
That's why last night was so awesome. It felt like this familial gathering.
Yeah. But anyways, so the whole Gator Bait thing is, we have the reels. They ought to be clean, inspected, scanned, and looked at. And looking at it's going to take a while because we have to do conform. We have to do side by sides of the the feature, to make sure that all the scenes match, that we have everything, and what extra stuff do we have. If it's extra stuff, there's a director's cut. Where's it supposed to go? Got to go talk to Deb. Got to figure out where these scenes maybe went. Maybe we have an extended cut. I don't fucking know. Maybe we have an alternate version. I don't know. We have to scan everything and see what we have. But I mean, we could have just grabbed the film reels of the 35 millimeter prints and called it a day.
Yep.
And that would have been a lot cheaper. But we didn't, because there's a chance that we may have higher quality. And it might be a big fucking bust, and we may have wasted a bunch of money. But we can still put the film on HD, and hopefully people enjoy it.
Yeesh. That's a lot. That's a lot to invest in 2 films.
I don't know though.
Yeah.
I think people are going to come out for Gator Bait and Gator Bait 2. Gator Bait 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they don't. Terra Vision's closing down. No, I mean, we have other films that we did stupid stuff like this with too, so it's fine. Yeah, we're just all done. We're all done here.
Well, I got to check in. Did Ryan ever answer the question about 100 subs?
Oh shit. I know he texted me back.
Watch, he's gonna be like 96. I know we got at least one more during this stream as well.
It's close. It's pretty close, but not a hundy.
I gotta wait till payday. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's people are excited, and this is something that gradually happens. I mean, already we were very impressed with the amount of subs that we got. We never would have thought in a million years it like quadrupled our expectations, which was a lot for us. I mean, that helped us acquire a lot of films, because even though we made all the money off the subs, we're still broke.
Right.
Because we spent it all on movies, which is very funny, because then we spend our money that we make on movies. It's just this, and then that company makes, that company is like pay it forward, that company makes money, so they're able to do something. But yeah, it was working with getting that stuff done. Hopefully we get it out, and yeah, hopefully people enjoy it and buy it. I mean, I mean, the whole thing is getting the film. I mean, if we didn't take too much of financial hits on this stuff, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I mean, some of the stuff does cost like a lot of money. I mean, I've said Shrigala numerous times. I forget what the end was, but like, I don't know, $25,000, something like that, in order to complete. And it's not even like all the money that it costs to like get like shipping and other shit. Like it's expensive to even just put a movie on Blu-ray. I mean, you're talking like $10,000. Depends on how you do it, but I mean, another thing is like we don't really we could skip out and fucking hire someone to do authoring cheap, but we use top of the line authoring people. Fidelity, Emotion. I know they do stuff with Fran at Radiance. I mean, Fran always tags Fidelity and Emotion when they do the encodes and authoring. That's who we use, because he's like great, and he knows what he's doing. He gets it, and you don't have to worry about certain things. And then, yeah, certain things slip by, certain problems. We had a issue with, Shrigala. Very, 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 very minor on one frame. It was just something that happened, and felt silly, it was embarrassing, but those things happen. I'd rather have something like that happen than the picture just fuck up or the disc not play. Because we do our own QC in-house too, as well as we pay people to do QC. I do QC because sometimes the people watching this stuff have no idea what the movie is. They're looking for visual flaws. I need to look to make sure all the fucking scenes are there and the dialogue matches up and a word isn't replaced, or there's like, where'd that scene come from? Do we have an alternate cut? I don't fucking know. Because that's exactly kind of what happened with Mama's Home, is that we were given the master for Mama's Home, but somehow in somewhere, shape, or form, it got mislabeled. So I'm doing the QC on Captives, and I was like, oh, let's play the version of Mama's Home. I was like, this is fucking Captives, what's going on? So went through the process and like, hey, we gave you them, because I didn't watch them. I watched the master. It's the master tape.
Right.
The transfer happened, and I saw a clip of the movie, and it's the same movie. It just has a different opening. I guess I should have watched it from front to start when I first got the sample. But I was like, this looks good. We know what we're doing. It's already been approved. It's already been QC'd in that sense. Everything's great. And then I sat down and I watched the disc, and I was like, oh, it's the wrong fucking thing. So then we was like, oh shit, we gotta do all this other stuff. Who doesn't QC? That's a lot. I'll tell you that. I'm not saying we're good, because we've already, we had the incident like that one frame with Strigal, and then I heard on Cannibal Camp Out the commentaries are flip flop with Zach and John McBride's commentary, and that literally is the silly flipperoo. That's very easy to do. I don't really take now. If one commentary is missing, that's a huge fuck up. But thankfully, that's not the case. We would have caught that. It just happens to be on the opposite track, which is super fucking easy to do on a build. So I don't feel like we have any glaring issues, and I hope we never do. But I mean, mistakes can happen. Like, as many eyes that you put on this stuff, it could be it's also time consuming, because there's only just two of us. And we also have all this other shit going on, and we're running, and we're producing films, we're doing our own stuff, we have families, we have lives, we're acquiring stuff, we're signing contracts, we're watching
going to the hospital in the middle of it.
Yeah, in a hospital, and then doing a podcast like 3 hours later. But yeah, it's a lot of work, so like we try to catch everything. And I think we do a pretty good job. A couple things slip by, but that's also learning things. So now it's like, we have to be extremely attentive on the disc QC. We cannot take our eyes off even a frame. If we do, we need to pause it. We need to definitely check when we hit play on things that we're, it's not you hit play, oh, there's Zach's voice and Brad, hit play, that's John's, cool, put them on the disc. No, make sure that they're equal, they're lined up. So it's all learning things. I mean, that's something about, a small business. You're going to make mistakes. Again, I don't want any glaring issues, because I feel like we're better than that. But I can't always say that's never going to fucking happen. Mistakes do happen, and we're going to feel really bad and embarrassed when it does. Hopefully it does happen, but it will. I don't want to constantly put out a new disc in your ship a new disc every month when we release a movie, because I think that is sort of ridiculous, especially when you have 300 employees.
That's true.
We only have like 5 employees, but only 2 of us actually do that part, and sometimes it's only me. Justin's doing other shit. So
that's true.
If I can make it happen, I don't know, and maybe other people can too.
So there is one question that I don't think got an answer last night that I've had a few people ask today.
Oh shit!
Any update on Happy Hell Night that you can share?
Happy Hell Night date. So Happy Hell Night, we're trying to get out in October. Film's been scanned, it's been restored. The only thing we have to do is HDR, but we've obviously HDR costs a lot of money. Everything costs money, and we have stuff coming out sooner, so that's been just delayed. And HDR doesn't take an entirely long period of time. And that movie's going to be really fun to do, because it's all like fucking dark, so we can play with the blacks and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's really good. The issue with Happy Hell Night, as I've said online, is that during some of the extras of shooting the extras, because most of the extras are done, they have been. I think the last extra was turned in. I had Amanda Reyes do a commentary, which I've always loved Amanda and her work. There's an exclusive. Amanda Reyes is on the Happy Hell Night commentary. But because I mean, it's just the history of the film. She's she's knowledgeable anyway, but she's really knowledgeable in that film. But during the process of editing and doing extras, like we talked to a few people, they said, "Oh yeah, which version?" It's like, what are you fucking talking about? So Happy Hell Night has a Spookies history. It's the same thing happened. Is that they made a movie and people weren't happy and they went back and they remade it. And it was very different in certain ways, and other ways they kept things the same. So some of the footage you see is from a movie called Blood Rush that they made, and then the other stuff is Happy Hell Night. So we were told that Blood Rush was completed and it was screened for like the people, like for not an audience, but for the cast and crew, and the producers were very unhappy. Not the one producer who owns it. She was cool, but we filmed most of the movie. It was edited in Czechoslovakia, so there was a lab there, a couple labs there we were looking for. One defunct that we were trying to figure out where all the material went, which we can't find. But just seeing it, we don't know if it ended up there. But there is a few places in New York that house the film and some material, so we went through that. I have a couple other places to check, because also we just check everywhere, because you'll find elements at some lab that was never associated with something. And then also, like, we check with sometimes the editors, production assistants, like anybody to give us any details, because sometimes they're like, you know what? I heard a story about how they were upset and wanted to throw it away, and then the grip came in and was like, "You're not throwing away this movie," and he took it home. And it's like, oh, what was that grip's name? Looking through the credits, calling all these people, and it's like, yeah, I kept it. My dad owns a restaurant, and I keep it in the back. That just happened, and it's like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And so yeah, it's just I exhaust every avenue before I do anything. And that's again why the City Lights stuff is taking so long, because we acquired the City Lights stuff a while ago. And to finish up the Happy Hell Night, it's going to come out before I jump on the City Lights thing. It's Happy Hell Night's going to hopefully come out in October, but we don't have the original cut. We just couldn't find it. We'll come out Happy Hell Night, UHD, HDR, applied, extras. It's going to look great. And hopefully that's going to be in October. But like the City Lights stuff, that's another reason why it took so long, is that I just couldn't accept even the producers saying, because I was talking to Joseph and I was like, so you shot it? And he's like, yes. And like Joseph's like very like straightforward on everything. And it's really funny because he's like, he feels like he's from in the mafia, but he's like a gentle, like just really nice person. And I would never forget the first time I called Joseph. This is a funny story. I called Joseph and I said, "Hey, I'm interested in these films." I was like, "Do you own anything?" He's like, "No, we sold it to this company." And I said, "Oh." He's like, "Why are you interested in these movies?" That's how I tried to do impersonation of Joseph. "Why are you interested in these movies?" I grew up with them. I love them. He's like, "Have you been checked out by a psychiatrist?" I was like, "Oh no." He's like, "I'm serious." He's like, "Why do you like these things?" He's like, "This is garbage." He's like, "Oh, do you have mental issues?" And I was like, "I don't know if you're being serious, but no, I don't." He's like, "You should." He's like, "You're insane." He's like, "I made these movies and it was insane." He's like, "I'm normal now." He's like, "I have a real job." And I was like, "Do you not like these movies or something?" He's like, "Oh no." He's like, "I'm very proud." He's like, "I'm just shocked that anybody likes them." So it's like just his back and forth. And anyways, he was essential in helping us track everything down. But we talked about it, and I was like, he's like, "We made these movies for no money. We were turning them over in like 6 months." He's like, we made like a movie for like, $10,000, $20,000. We'd make $100,000. We'd take 20,000 of that, and then we would make another movie, and then we would take the $80,000 and split it amongst ourselves. And they just did this all the time, so they were making so much fucking money because every film made more money. And he was like, we were just pumping out as soon as we could. He's like, the cheapest way to do it was not process the film first, like make a negative. He's like, just edit it on tape, put it in the video store, we get it in a week. And I was like, oh shit. So, that was kind of the whole like thing with City Lights, is that we went through back and forth. And we went to every company. Like I said, there was a kids company called Harvey Entertainment that had the film for a little while in the early 90s. They were under some other company, I can't remember. Then they were owned by a non-video company for a bit, and then they Troma bought it in one of their packages. And I don't remember when Troma picked them up, but they didn't even know all the City Lights films that they had at the time. Like, even when we acquired it, I think I was telling them what they actually owned, and they didn't even know it. And they updated their site like weeks later. It was pretty funny. But yeah, we went back and forth on that for quite some time. Michael said there was no material. And then we had this one big lead where through certain brands of acquiring everything, they ended up at DreamWorks Entertainment. And I was like, oh my God, you got to be fucking kidding me. So here I am for like weeks on end. Like, how do I contact a lab at DreamWorks?
Right.
Like, it's something you don't Google, And so it was like a million emails, and finally spoke to somebody, and I was like, can you check? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, there's this movie called LA Crackdown, and it's like, we have Shrek, and not the 90s shot on video Shrek. We have the $1 billion maker Shrek. We just made Puss in Boots 2. What the fuck do you want? And it's like, I actually really like Puss in Boots 2. But can you please check for LA Crackdown? And yeah, it just kind of back and forth of that. And I mean, they just came back. They said, there's no such thing here. We have no records of anything coming in. And I was like, this took like literally a dead end, took like 3-4 months just to get an answer. Yeah, and it's a lot of people get very frustrated with you, especially when you sounds like you're making up names of movies. Like, Fresh Kill. Like, I mean, I guess it sounds cool, but if I was at DreamWorks making billions of dollars off of Puss in Boots 2 and someone said Fresh Kill to me, I don't know. Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyways, it's like we exhausted every fucking avenue looking for any film material on any of the City Lights stuff, and it's not existent. And if it is, I guarantee we'll fucking do it. And you show proof of purchase, and we'll give you a major discount on the upgrade that we do. That will always happen if we do find anything, but I highly doubt we will, because I've been at this for a long time, and like I said, I need a no. I can't have a maybe or I don't know. I need to know, like, no, this was like, that's why Lionsgate was good. It's like, we have documentation of this actually being lost in the fire with Rocktober Blood. And I was like, good enough for me. And they're like, here's a master plate. And I was like, that's cool with me. Cool. And even something like I mentioned last night on Shadows Run Black, it was another movie that we acquired that just had a tape master. It looks really good. But, it's on the slate for like, it was originally on the slate for like 2024, like in October. Just because I do that because I need time to look for everything.
Right.
Because you hear me the tape, I'm like, cool, but I'm not going to put it out immediately. I need to sit on it for a bit, do extras, but I never trust any answers unless like I hear it myself. So we put it like on the back slate, and I said this on the podcast last night. I was talking to Michael Felcher, Red Shirt. And, Michael and I have worked on a couple projects together, and he's working on this other project that I was not involved with, but, we were talking about it, and I had another project for him, blah blah blah, and he knew. I don't know how he knew. I mean, you kind of always hear things in these circles of film industry of who has what. Um, Sometimes it helps so you don't waste your time looking for rights, and then you find out someone else owns it, which always happens. And he was like, "Hey," he's like, "I'm working with so and so at this," and he said, "You know, I think they actually have a print at least of Shadows Run Black." And I was like, "Holy shit!" So we contacted Lionsgate. He actually gave me a number, and that actually helped because we were talking. I was like, "Hey," I was like, "We need this film print. I have the owner here." I was like, "Can you double check the vault for?" Yeah, that sounds very familiar. We're gonna, and I mean, we should actually have. I hope they still have it. But yeah, when it gets shipped, that'd be great. But that also helped because I was like, "Hey, you working on video?" And they're like, "Yeah, kind of." And I was like, "You gonna release everything you own? Let me get it." And then it kind of started a conversation of like, "Okay, yeah, let's have a chat about licensing stuff out." And so, that actually happened. Not saying anything's happening with Lionsgate, but we are talking to Lionsgate about licensing some stuff that, I don't foresee being on the Vestron label because no one's going to fuck about it. Because I want the nitty gritty stuff. I don't, they can make their own money with their big releases of X title here, and they'll make money. I'm not going to ask for, I would love to do Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, but they're going to do that shit. They're going to make a lot of money. I want the movie that no one cares about.
Well, and they're only releasing like 4 times a year anyways.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. They're very, I mean, because I think part of it, and this isn't a hit against them, is that I don't know if they care as much.
Right.
It's kind of a fun thing. I think honestly, probably Felsher pushes that the most, because that's the thing is that you need somebody in your company to care about physical media in order for it to happen. I think I talked about this on your Discord. Is that you have like Paramount, for example, is a very very good example. The people at Paramount, the people that run the home video side, they care so much about physical media. They want to know what packaging looks like, and not because they want approval. I mean, they do, but they want to know. They get excited. When we actually went to Paramount, they knew the guy was a fan of Ryan's Graveface label because in college he listened to a lot of Graveface records, and he was like, "Holy shit!" He's like, "This is amazing," and it was that was what really kind of triggered the Paramount stuff because they were really into what we were doing.
Wow.
They liked our approach to everything, and it was funny because we were talking. I was like, "Hey, can I grab this movie?" And he's like, I don't know. I really like that movie, and I think we're gonna do that." And I was like, "Hey," because he's a fan of the movie. And so that was kind of like a back and forth is that they're really into it. They're big on physical media, and they're the ones pushing for all these 4K UHD releases, and they get excited themselves. And they know they can't handle it all. That's why they license stuff out, or maybe it's something that has already been exploited enough that they can't get, other people to come in and, talk Paramount into re-releasing a movie that's been done like 18 times,
Right.
So it just depends on who you have. So if you hit that right person and they're excited about physical media, sometimes they're old school, you can really get like a really good vibe going with one another. And that's what's cool about it. MGM's a little bit different. They have, I don't know, they're like the robots from Halloween 3. They really don't do anything like emotion wise. They just are like, yes. Okay.
Lots of oversight.
No. And I mean, they're cool. It's a very different kind of experience. It's not a bad experience. I mean, MGM's a great company. And they know what they own, and they're very cool about things. They're very upfront, and they want to help. And that's the big thing is that we did one MGM deal. We went back doing another one. We got another one brewing. And it was like, Now we're like, hey, what about this movie? I know there's music issues, but how can we fix it? What can we do? And so it's like I sit down with like legal and everything. It's like, okay, let's figure this part out. Let's figure this part out. Maybe this could happen. Who knows? And so that's been kind of a piece with them is working through some things. And we did the same thing at Paramount, you know, um, trying to fix issues to give these movies a release, because it's very easy to go to one of these studios and say, I want to license these movies. Okay, here's your masters. Okay, let's put them out. Boom, they're out.
Yep.
And it's like, cool. I'm glad these movies are out on Blu-ray, UHD. Cool. Archival special features, whatever it may be. But sometimes, like, there's all these movies in these companies that are kind of untouched, and I think people are afraid of them. Rightfully so, because obviously sometimes it's hard to push certain films. But yeah, it's a little rough sometimes. But yeah, I mean the studios are cool. They're fine. But yeah, it's a big obstacle, and like I said, everybody's different, so you just kind of have to acclimate with people. Which I've always
Right.
been a people person. I've always been in like the public, dealing with the public, because I worked in healthcare for a long time. So it's just learning people and get them, making them feel comfortable. It's the same thing I do with filmmakers. Building a line of trust, and once you get that, you can kind of like bend the envelope a little bit and like see what else you can, like, how can we work together and be more creative. So it takes a while. So like first deal is like very standard. Get a relationship going, get some other stuff, be familiar. So yeah, it's a fun process, but it takes a long time. I guess I also make it take a long time because I obviously talk a lot. But I like to get to know people. I like to work with them and make them feel good about what they did. The last thing I want is to walk away from a film deal and be like, yes, I got this movie. And then they're like, oh man, what the fuck did I just do? Did I just sign my life away?
Right.
Yeah, I don't want that to ever happen. I want you to enjoy the ride. There's going to be time where we have to part because we have to move on to other projects. But that's why every filmmaker we've worked with intensely, and if they want to be involved, of course. So
Well, speaking of healthcare, you spent a lot of time in the hospital today, so maybe we should let you get some rest tonight.
yeah, I know. My wife just texted me and she said, "Are you coming to bed?" And I said, "In a little bit." And now it's
Someday.
she just put me like four question marks. She's
I
ready to cuddle, and I've been up for way too long. So, but it was nice. I always have fun chatting with you. You're always a good guy, Will. You're a cool guy.
yeah,
People
it's great to
thinking
meet
you're
you.
on mute the whole entire time, which is kind of funny. But that's mainly because I was talking the entire time. But yeah, no, I appreciate it, and yeah, I'm in the Discord with Ryan, so that's cool. Or his Discord, whatever you want to call it. I just sometimes spam in there, so I apologize, but just trying to get the word out.
I love when you jump in there and respond to things. I mean, that helps a lot of things. Like this last week with the Disney crap that happened, and yeah,
Oh yeah, this is
good
gonna hurt
times.
Disney. I remember that comment. I was like, Disney owns theme parks.
Right.
They gonna be fine. They don't give a shit. I forget what
Well,
it's like. They make like $1 billion a day or some crazy ass shit like that. Like,
something like that.
give me. All I need is like, give me the salary of for 1 hour,
Yeah.
and I'll be able to run fucking Terra Vision forever.
There we go.
Thanks. Well, thanks for all your time tonight. I know that you've been, kind of hurting today, so it's a big deal to sacrifice that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, and sometimes I just get to talking, and then 2 hours and 49 minutes pass by.
Is that it?
Well,
Yeah,
well,
you feel like we talked about many movies. It's just me rambling. So, yeah,
before we go,
that's my shtick. So apologies.
before we go,
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a joke that I just made up.
Yeah, I mean, you've had plenty of time to think about it because I've just been yammering. So
Yeah, I've had it for about an hour. What did one tape master say to the other tape master?
do you have the tape key, master key? I don't know.
When somebody's telling a joke and they say, "What did one thing say?" You say, "What?" So
Oh.
what did one tape master say to the other tape master?
What?
I've been duped again.
On that note,
Yeah, I think it is. I think it really is time to leave.
the dad jokes from Three Dads. I appreciate it. You guys have been awesome. Please check out Terra Vision. All the links for everything is in the description below. Brad, thank you again for your time. Will, thanks for being here and hanging out. We'll see you guys